If you wish to speak to any item on the agenda or during the public comment portion of the meeting, please fill out a speaker card. Each person addressing the board shall have 3 minutes to complete his or her comments on each agenda item for which he or she has filled out a card. The chair has the discretion to determine or alter the time limits on any agenda item. The Board of County Commissioners requests that speakers appearing under the public comment section of the agenda limit their comments or presentations to matters relating to county business that are within the board's control, authority, and jurisdiction.
Well, good afternoon. Welcome to Thursday, February 29th budget hearings. Could we please stand for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you so very much. Jill, are you going to handle the budget overview?
Actually, I'm going to start it off for us, Commissioners.
Jill's a little cuter than you are, but that's all right.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Staff and I are privileged to have the opportunity to come before the board today, discuss with you the county's budget. Our plan today is to provide the board with a high-level overview of some key organizational areas that we believe the board would be interested in hearing about, and areas that staff believes we might benefit from board input and direction. The board's already addressed some key areas like solid waste and a variety of things that we're doing in 192 at Central Facility, up in Mockingbird as well, and utilities. So we are moving forward with the prior board-approved direction that we received. You don't see those departments on the today's agenda. However, staff's ready to address those or other areas that the board may be interested in hearing from at another time if the board would be interested in doing so. Talk about where we're going to go today. Staff's already committed to presenting the board a budget proposal for fiscal year 2024-25 that does not exceed the charter cap or the aggregate millage. As a result, per the board guidance that you've already provided at the recent board meeting, we will develop and submit a budget proposal that, in accordance with Florida statute, does not have a tax increase, and no tax increase will need to be advertised. I'm proud to say that we've been able to present the board similar budget proposals in 6 of the past 7 years. For today's workshop, staff's going to be providing the board data information that will show the board where we've been operationally and budgetarily the last several years in several departments, where we are currently in fiscal year 23-24, and where we believe we will be and where we plan to be moving forward. What we're going to be seeking from the board today is input and direction on whether you would like us to either stay the course in each of the areas that we're going to be discussing, augment what we're doing in any particular area, and then we can have a discussion about, the budget impact of that, and then perhaps whether or not you want us to scale back in any area and reprioritize what we are doing and what we have planned moving forward. To the degree you'd like us to prepare any additional information to assist the board, we're happy to do that as well. Basically, today we're looking to check our alignment in what we're doing with important board initiatives, things that you think are important for us to move forward with. We're going to begin by letting Jill give you a brief overview of our overall budget. Then that'll be followed by charter officer presentations, and the chief judge is here as well to speak, and then our departmental presentations will follow. So I'll turn it over to Jill at this point.
Thank you, Frank. And I'll be starting off the workshop with a brief overview of the budget. And I wanted to start by giving a quick review of the change in the Consumer Price Index. So as you all are aware, the charter cap limits our property tax revenue to the lesser of 3% or the change in CPI, whichever is less. And we also have a variety of other revenues such as non-ad valorem assessments, charges and services that are also tied to CPI. And so this chart illustrates the change in CPI since 2014. And as we begin budget development for fiscal year 24-25, we're looking at a change in CPI of 4.12%. And so while this is lower than last year's change of 8%, it's still higher than that 3% cap that we have. in the property tax revenue. And so in addition to the change in CPI, we also wanted to highlight the cumulative comparison of other price indices that impact county operations and our buying power. So the blue line here reflects the cumulative change in CPI, and that's what we just talked about on the prior slide. But we also wanted to show you the red line, which is the change in the construction cost index, as well as the green line, which is the change in the municipal cost index. So you can see that the prices of those types of services have grown higher than the change in the CPI. And this is important because while, of course, Brevard County government has significant capital improvement projects and other programs and services that require procurement of those standard government commodities and contracted services. And we're going to talk about that more later on when the departments give their presentations. You'll hear about the growing cost of, for example, fire apparatus, construction projects, and you'll hear about that from Public Works, Parks and Recreation, and Natural Resources. So as we work to develop the fiscal year 24-25 proposed budget and millage rates, and in accordance with our charter cap limitations, we'll be looking at that 3% increase in the general countywide property tax revenue, which is approximately $5.6 million increase to the current ad valorem revenue. And this is the third time since 2008 where we've experienced that change in CPI greater than the 3%. So we wanted to illustrate the difference. If we were able to go to the 4.12%, that would be an additional $2 million. But again, we're capped at that $5.6 million increase. Now, it's important to note that the charter cap calculation does exclude new construction from that calculation, so we wanted to show the portion of the general countywide property tax revenue associated with new construction. And we have experienced significant growth in new construction over this time period. However, we won't know what that number is going to be until June or July when we receive those property valuations. All right, so this next portion of the budget overview, I want to go over our fiscal year 2023-2024 budget, which the board adopted this past September. And what we're really going to focus on over the next several slides is that light blue operating revenue, which is the new revenue received by the county each year. But statutorily, we are required to budget for balances carried forward, so we wanted to show that as well. So of that $2 billion budget, there is approximately 46% of that, or $936 million, is balanced forward. And that's primarily associated with long-term capital projects or funding that's set aside in reserves. And again, we're going to focus on that operating revenue, which is new money coming forward each year from property taxes, permits, fees, special assessments, and charges for services. So this next chart here represents those operating revenues that are $1,046 million. And in governmental accounting, many of the revenues that are collected are limited in how they can be spent. So years ago, a concept was developed that we refer to as the color of money to help better explain the purposes of those funds. And so, for example, our special revenue funds, which are the largest portion of the pie here in pink, those are funds received for a specific purpose, such as grants, local option gas taxes, tourism development taxes, which have to be legally allocated for a specific purpose. Our enterprise funds are, solid waste, utilities, which act as a business and collect charges for services. I'm not going to go into a great level of detail on these, but over the next several slides, we did provide a high-level summary of how those dollars are allocated and how they must be spent, just to have for reference for the board and for the public. But what we really want to focus on is that dark green, which is the general fund, where the board has the most discretion. So again, I'm going to skip over these slides, but they are available for the board and public, and we're able to answer any questions you might have on those. But we did want to highlight the general fund, and again, that was that dark green portion of the previous slide where the board has the most discretion. So the left side of this chart represents the revenue collected in the general fund, and the primary source of that is that property tax revenue at about $186 million. We also have some other major revenues that are collected in the general fund, including state shared revenues, communication service tax, local half-cent sales tax, and we do recognize balance forward. So the total general fund for the current fiscal year is just over $321 million. Now, on the right side of this chart, we show how those funds are allocated. And so you can see in the top section where we list the general fund obligations of $212 million, and that's broken out. That represents about 66% of the general fund, which we have to obligate those dollars for. And then that leaves the other funding available for general fund supported departments. And we're going to provide additional details in the next several slides. So again, the general fund, we support the charter officers and their budgets. So this provides a breakdown of how those general funds are allocated to our charter officers. And I know that several of them are here, and they'll talk more about their individual budgets today. We're also required to fund certain mandates, and these are state requirements, so we wanted to provide you with those as well. We have other obligations. We set aside funds for reserves in accordance with our policies, and also to have money set aside for emergencies. There's also some debt that the general fund is required to pay, and we also have obligations to pay for our CRA payments and the North Brevard Economic Development Zone. And so after we make those obligations, then the remaining funds are allocated to the county's departments and services. And so this slide shows the board's commitment to public safety and infrastructure. And again, you're going to hear more about this in the departmental presentations, but the board has committed to making long-term investments in our public safety, such as fire rescue, as well as infrastructure. And so we wanted to highlight that here. And then finally, the general fund supports these other programs and services. And you'll hear from Parks and Recreation about how their general fund allocation also does support infrastructure improvements as well. And again, I'm not going to go over this list in great detail, but we are available to answer any questions that the board might have.
Okay. So I guess we'll go with the charter officers now?
That's right. We call up the sheriff's office.
Boy, everybody looks so professional in their uniforms today. That's great.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, staff. Unfortunately, the Sheriff was unable to make it today, so you have to look at our two mugs, and I apologize for that. But I'll make this short, sweet, and simple as possible. Dig through my my chicken scratch here. But I first of all would like to thank the board and the county manager and staff. They've been able to put a leadership plan together that has led to what I would consider a generational improvements, at least for the Brevard County Sheriff's Office. First of all, I would have lost a bet to Frank on the EOC completion. It's an absolute beautiful facility, and he did it not only on time, but I think ahead of schedule. So congratulations, sir. That was a job well done. There were some other very important facility upgrades for us this year that, like I said, absolutely generational. Most of our facilities are anywhere between 50 and 70 years of age and have been just pieced together for years. But in addition to the new EOC and the Unified Communications Center, we have a new Fleet and Evidence Center, the start of a new emergency animal surgery center, the courthouse security enhancements, criminal investigations. We were able to upgrade a lot of our deputy security equipment, including weight-bearing vests, body armor, radios, and all the upgrades associated with it, to include a new range and training facility. As it relates to our budget for this upcoming year, I think it's very difficult at this point in time to be able to lay out what that budget plan or footprint's going to look like. from historical years, we know that at least 78% of our budget goes to personnel costs associated with salaries and pennies. So it leaves very little left to actually deal with the operational costs. CPI, as we looked at on the graph, of course, gives the appearance that it is going down, but actual costs continue to rise and are very impacting on us, such as fuel, equipment, shipping, everything associated with the operations of our agency. We're still awaiting the budget impacts, such as the FRS contribution rates. I've been paying attention daily, watching to see what's going on there, but I don't believe we're going to know anything until shortly after the session ends on the contribution rates, especially for special risk, healthcare increases, workers' compensation increases, professional liability insurance, our collective bargaining, facility upgrades impacts, and most importantly, this year will be a renegotiation of the county jail medical and food service contracts. The really only concern that I haven't expressed so far is the usual, are we going to have one storm, two storms, or three storms related to our emergency disaster response, and actual, other than that, equipment replacements. And we worked it out with Frank last year, where he was able to help us out, get some capital back into the budget, so we were able to get ahead of the game, get some new ADs, tasers, and other operational needs. And this year will be the same. We'll probably have to do some more contractual needs with IT-related and software. But other than that, that's the State of the Union of the Brevard County Sheriff's Office. And again, thank you very much for the support you've shown.
Yes, Commissioner Pritchett.
I just want to commend you and Sheriff Ivey's office. You guys always do such a good job of getting us really good information at budget time. Matter of fact, before we even get an opportunity to call, you guys always pick up the phone and start explaining a few things in detail. I really appreciate that. Quick question. Over the past few years, I know that your cost per population, you're one of the most efficient sheriffs, I have to say this publicly, sheriff offices in the state of Florida, and I know our population's growing, so my question is, are you guys still working hard? Are you still having a hard time getting enough staffing to meet the demands of a growing population in Brevard County?
Well, I can't speak for all of public service, but I can tell you I believe that's a nationwide crisis right now, and there's many factors that impact that. We are probably overall in the 100 to 120 range in vacancies. That's not all sworn, but if you combine law enforcement, a jail, correctional facility, and civilians, it's very impacting. I believe, and I can only speak for myself, but looking at this, a lot of the newer culture of employees that are coming, it's not a career anymore, it's a job. And as soon as they find something that has a better appeal, it's easier to move on. We do have a charter cap, which makes it a little bit more difficult to be competitive with some of our surrounding counties, which always gives and opens the door for poaching of our trained employees. And we're not only fighting other public safety, but we have to fight now the private sector on the other side of the river. So we're fighting the other side of St. John's with Orange, Osceola, Seminole, and then if you look on the other side of the Banana River, now we have SpaceX and everybody else who's paying $10 more an hour than most of our starting salaries. So it is difficult. We're trying to fill our vacancies. We're doing as best as we can, but it comes down to trying to get them in the door, through the door, and stay in the door. And I think we're not the only one. I would assume Frank with the county and fire rescue and everybody else that's in the public service sector is dealing with the same issues.
So we need to make sure all of these young people graduating high school are hearing these opportunities.
We want to get them out of high school, get them recruited, and get them in a uniform as quickly as possible.
Thank you for being here. It's one of the only opportunities the public has to hear about your office and the other constitutionals. I appreciate you taking the time out and coming.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Any other questions from the commission? Hearing none, thank you very much for your time today, and thank you for your service.
Thank you,
And
sir.
I did just tour the EOC yesterday. Oh, my goodness.
Yes.
Unbelievable. The county is going to be so well served by that. I'm just thrilled with it.
No, I mean, there was many that played a role in that, but I got to say the leadership team on this to make that happen and make it turn out as quickly, timely, and as effectively as possible. It's remarkable, absolutely remarkable.
Well, thank you very much, sir.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Our Madam Clerk. Rachel, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Did you bring your honor with you?
Did I bring what?
The judge with you today?
Oh, I did. Yep,
Well, I didn't
right
see
here.
him. Oh, there he
Yep.
is. Hey, Judge, how are you?
I would have had him wear a
Welcome,
different
Charlie.
color had I known that what the majority would be wearing here today. So,
She brought her flunky, yes.
so I want to thank everybody as well for having today and being able to speak. I am in the same boat as the sheriff when it comes to the cost of hiring and losing people. You know, it used to be the clerk's office was a place that you stayed and you retired, and we're just not seeing that at this time. My starting is about $13 an hour. I'm trying to stay a little higher than minimum wage, but it is what comes into the budget, and I try to live by that budget. So I'm a little less than most people, and including my colleagues around the state. My budget with the county is a little different, and I do want to take a minute to thank Frank and Jill because we work very well together. We have some laughs together, and they are just a great team to work with the finance. And as you all know, it makes the comptroller side and the county side work a little better and easier when we all can work together. From where our budget is today, if I ask for 3%, that 3% is only a $70,000 increase into my budget for the county. Now, not any fault of the county at all. When I say this, this is on the clerk's office, and it was how we kind of, I guess the best way to say it is how we roll with our budget. Our budget today, where it is still below what our budget with the county was in 2008. When we reduced employees because of changes in our budget, we also reduced that with the county. And again, that was never at the county's request. That was something that the clerk's office did. So because of that was a choice that we made, and I stand with that decision that was made at that time. I was on the leadership team with Clerk Ellis. We are a little bit behind the 8 ball, and I recognize that, and I asked my staff, who's also to the left of me, to put up with that, and they understand that. So sometimes it makes hiring a little more difficult for me, but that's why those we're a little bit more behind. Some of the projects that we're working on in the clerk's office that I think are very important to bring to you today, and I ask that my chief deputy show you, is that we hold over 3,000 books, which are the original books here in Brevard County. There is actually 3,407 of these books, which are used almost daily here by the public, and they are housed in Titusville, in our Titusville Parkway office. And in those books, we are starting to see the paper disintegrate. We're starting to see the papers when the public needs them or copies. These books include our official records. They include the soldier and sailor books, the military DD-214s, naturalization records, the fictitious name books, the marriage license records, and the commission minute index books. And these some date to 1800s. This book I had made, and this is a project I'm starting to work on, is to ensure that these documents are not lost in the history of Brevard. And I've started to use my my funds from my excess fees. They're not really excess fees, so let's take that part out, okay? No excess fees, Jill and Frank, no. But it's from us here in Brevard County having passports and accreditation and marriage license and doing those extra duties that I have started to work to preserve this record. And I think that's very important, and I hope to continue to do that. And at any time, any of the commissioners or your constituents that need that information, it will be made available. I can tell you that we are promised that they are waterproof and they are fireproof. I'm not going to try that, but that's what we're assured, and I hope that we have no disasters to see if that works, but that's what I'm told. Another thing is our security. We, We take in millions of dollars at the clerk's office. I'm not sure how many are aware of that. But we take everything in from when the foreclosure sales happens, to the tax deeds, to child support, to just the daily citations that our law enforcement has nicely handed out. I'll say nicely, right, Under Sheriff? And then our marriage license and all the other requirements that we have. So security becomes an issue with that. And so another project that I'm working is upgrading our security cameras to capture. I do receive fraudulent bills. I try to do everything I can not to have those fraudulent bills get through, but they do. People, they are very creative, and they work it through our system. But that is the two projects that my office is working on greatly, that we are trying to give back to the public for. So that's it. That's me. Did I go
Thank
over
you.
3 minutes?
Commissioner Pritchett, did you have a question?
Yes, ma'am, I want to as well. Thank you for all you do. I don't think general public really understands all the work you do, as you're the comptroller. And it's a lot of details. And I have to say, we went through a training with you. The amount of information you store and how easy you make it available for us to even just go online and find it. Kudos, you totally rock.
Thanks.
Thank you for all you do. Thank you for your staff. And you really run a really tight budget too, and I want to thank you for that. And thank you for coming here today. Again, it's the only time the public really gets to hear about all the things you're doing, because you don't have a lot of TV time. So I just really want to thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Commissioner Feltner.
How are you? Thanks
Good.
for being here today. We definitely appreciate it. Since COVID, right, court operations changed significantly. People weren't having in-person hearings and what have you. So can you just give us real quick what 2020 looked like versus 2024 in the day-to-day operations at the courthouses?
So before COVID, we didn't, and we've come back to some, but we've had to have at the jail at one point multiple hearing rooms, which was a burden onto the sheriff and the clerk mainly. They had to make those rooms available and the staffing available with the safety, and then I had to have extra clerks or overtime that work that. When an employee works at the jail, they do receive a stipend because of the facility, and we recognize not everybody's comfortable at the jail. We have had to have non-in-person hearings. We have moved to even down to how we do business of the chairs and everything, because we have very close quarters at the clerk's office and the handling of all the money. We never had a lot of glass before, and we've taken on all of that in the last couple of years. We've been very fortunate that the county has worked with us. Again, I can't thank them enough, and I think my staff can say the same. We've been able to make some changes because they've helped us in that, and we've all worked well together. The staffing in 2020 was almost at full staff. The staffing today is not at full staff. We hardly have trained court clerks. I lose a lot of trained court clerks to court admin because they are able to pay more than I'm able to pay. Although, if the clerks could see that the potential for advancement is there in the office, and I'm an example, they would maybe understand that dollar extra isn't worth it in the long run. So the way our computer system, we are transferring to, or in the middle of transferring computer systems, what we thought the cost was and what it's going to end up is a big difference. And that's what we talk about in our budget meetings. And the county did help us purchase that. But with all the changes, they've racked up the prices. So we've seen a decline in some of our staff, in not having enough staff to function for the courts, and then the way that we do business is totally different. I would never have believed that I had to buy TVs in 2021 for court hearings to do team meetings, and I would have thought that we would have needed cameras, and we have TVs all over the place in case that is happening.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Ms. Sadow, you brought Judge Crawford with you today.
I did.
Did you, Your Honor, would you like to say a few words, sir?
So one of the things, the reason I asked, and Judge Crawford was nice enough to come, is that we noticed also from 2020 that our jurors, we don't have enough space. We did not have enough space in the Vieira, and then the facility in Titusville was becoming probably a little too much for our constituents when coming to jury duty, and the outside conditions for them to get into the building in Titusville. So I started looking for money to expand our jury room. And as I did that, and it was unfamiliar territory for me, I realized that I probably shouldn't be asking for the appropriation, but the chief judge should be asking for that appropriation. So at the time, Chief Judge Crawford was not the chief judge, it was Judge Rexeiler. So Judge Rexeiler agreed to apply and fill out the necessary paperwork for an appropriation. In our county, we were given that appropriation. It's not me, it's the courts, and we received about $5 million, which we're very grateful for. And so because of that, it then goes on to the chief judge of the changes that we need to make to the buildings and to the other buildings to move forward in what is our growth here in Brevard County and our dockets, and they are much higher than they were years ago. So I asked Judge Crawford if he would come and to explain a little bit, and then some of the decisions that were being made.
Thank you. Thank you all for having me. Good afternoon, everybody. This is my 18th year and starting my final term, but I still come to work excited. I'm happy to be there. I love being there. And I'm a fixer. As judges, I think we're all fixers, but I need your help on this one. We can't do this without you. We had the good fortune of getting the $5.5 million from the state, and I believe that the committee, and thanks to Mr. Abate and the committee and Commissioner Feltner for all the efforts to get us up to where we are now. We have a plan that includes 2 new courtrooms, one for a jury and one for a non-jury. They'll be ADA compatible in case there's a constituent that needs that, or if there's a judge that needs that. Those are the new requirements, because that building's been there for a while, so some of it's ADA compliant, some of it is not. Thanks to the Clerk of Court and the Public Defender's Office, the State Attorney, and those folks that walked each courthouse with me and decided what needed to be done, because it's a little disingenuous for us to ask for money and then not use every space in every courtroom and every office and every square inch, and we weren't doing that. So with their help, we came up with a plan to do that. Every courtroom's going to be used, every office is going to be filled, they'll be utilized full-time. Some of the courtrooms will obviously need to be utilized by several judges because we don't have a courtroom for every judge. Part of our safety problem now is a sheriff has to go with a judge and litigants behind closed doors in a judge's office and have trials. And you can imagine a defendant on this side, or a petitioner and a respondent, they're in a divorce, they're 3 feet across from each other for days on end. It's just not safe, and I'm not going to continue to do that. So what we've done is we've agreed to bring circuit civil and circuit criminal that have the large juries down to Vieira, because we're increasing the jury space almost by double by using the library. And in this day and age, books aren't what computers are, so with everybody's somewhat agreement, we were able to get that library space, and it's going to be turned into a new jury room. The jury room's not going to be the 2 courtrooms. One of the other reasons I wanted to bring circuit criminal, because we're going to leave a county criminal and a county civil in Titusville, but one of the reasons I wanted to bring that down is right now, if I'm standing in the hallway and a murderer or a rapist needs to go to a courtroom, I've got to plant myself against the wall, and so does the public, while the sheriff, fortunately in chains with several sheriff deputies, bring them down the hallway. And that's just an accident waiting to happen. It's a horrible, horrible thing. But, you know, the building was built a long time ago, and that's just the way it is. So we're going to move people so that that doesn't happen anymore. We're also going to move Department of Juvenile Justice folks, the juveniles, down to Melbourne. There'll be the only situation where somebody's there that needs to be in chains, so to speak, because right now the adults and the kids are essentially in the same spot, and that's not allowed by law. So we've got some changes that we need to make, that we're going to make, regardless of what money we get. But we believe with the increased population, judges not having a courtroom, we're going to need your help. And so what we're asking for, and another example that we need your help with, the sheriff has kindly included us in the new security measures with the cameras, and that's going to help. Right now, they have to have a giant number on the swing door, because that's the way the camera knows what courtroom they're looking at, because on the bench, they can't tell it's me. Even this ugly mug, they can't tell it's me because the cameras are so bad. And we all wear black dresses, so some people think it's a lady sitting on the bench too. So either way, we thank you for that. That's coming our way, and y'all have already funded that. You also have funded the new HVAC system and the new elevator in Melbourne, and we thank you for that because we need to be compliant with that. But with all that being said, we took the numbers that came from the committee that were shared with us. We kind of extrapolated those a little bit on Melbourne and Titusville, and we think we're going to be about 2 million short, because you've already ponied up about $500,000 with the HVAC system and the elevator. Believe it or not, that's what that costs. The prices are outrageous, and those of us that aren't in the construction field are shocked every time we look at it. So I feel your pain, Frank. I feel your pain. But thank you for letting me speak. One of the things we have to do in Titusville has nothing to do with us. We're not asking for new furniture, new chairs. It's not about making us comfortable or helping the judges in any way. It's about the constituency. For example, we have jury boxes in a courtroom that is being used, because it has to be used, for family cases. They're columns, as you know, in Titusville. So while Major League Baseball can sell obstructed view seats, a litigant shouldn't have to lean over and say, "I object, Your Honor," because he's sitting behind a post. And I know that sounds strange, but that literally happens every day in Titusville. So we're asking for your help. I know this is just an initial ask, but we have a lot more detail that we can provide, and Frank has helped us with that. So thank you for the time, and if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Is there any questions for Judge Crawford?
I have one.
Commissioner Goodson.
Question, Judge.
Yes, sir.
If the $2 million is not appropriated in some respect, what will it do to the process of offenders that go before your courts? Would they be released? Will they be just
God,
handed?
no.
Okay.
This, what we're asking for is to make sure the public's not standing next to somebody in chains. And the sheriff does everything he can to prevent that, but we're walking down the same common hall together. So we think we've resolved that. And what we've done is send the non-criminal cases, except for, because it's different. I got a county guy that stole a loaf of bread standing next to me in the hallway on bond versus a triple murderer. There's a difference, and we understand that. So we're going to leave that up there to service the people of Titusville. But there are things that can't get done behind the secure area where we're having hundreds and hundreds of family law cases. And it's not fair to the litigants, it's not fair to the judge, and it's not fair to the deputy, because he's sitting in there in a tiny room. People are 3 feet across from each other. At that point in their lives, they hate each other, and they act worse than some of the criminals do, believe it or not. Criminals are usually on good behavior in court. A lot of people aren't when they're in family court. So we're trying to get everybody out from that secure area and put them in a public space, and that's what we need help with. Moving jury boxes, getting people from behind columns. But as far as anybody getting out of jail, that's got nothing to do with what we're talking about. That won't happen. Unless they're entitled to get out of jail. I should say that.
Yeah, Commissioner Feltner.
The 2 million you're talking about is for Titusville, mostly the concerns that you're talking about today?
Mostly at this point, because you guys have allocated that money toward Melbourne already. There's a couple of things that need to be fixed in Melbourne. Like right now, if a deputy is standing in a certain spot in Melbourne, he has to lean forward and look around the corner to see other people in the courtroom because of the way things are shaped. But we can work around that, but mostly Titusville.
So the $5.5 million that the committee worked on is largely Viera Melbourne.
Right.
And so additional $2 million would address concerns in Titusville.
And we're not asking for it all at once. We realize what the budget is. So that's not even something we consider. It'd be nice to have it all at once while they're doing this construction and do it all at the same time. But we understand that's probably not going to happen, so.
Okay. I think it's important I mean, we're going to see the courthouse plan soon. I think that will come before the commission, but one of the things that they're doing, just so that we all understand, is court operations at Melbourne greatly reduced over the years. And so we have very strongly suggested, and the courts have come through, I think, here with this plan to use the space efficiently or as efficient as possible, and that includes a busy Melbourne courthouse again.
And we have the blessing of the state attorney, the sheriff, and the public defender's office, which is where most of our issues lie ultimately. And the judges have signed off on it. And there are judges who are moving to Melbourne and moving to Titusville that aren't there now. And all but one was happy about it, and he's going anyway. So it'll happen.
He referenced the law library too, so that's at the Vieira Courthouse, and a large portion of the law library is going to be the new jury room. So that's one of the trades that have been made in this courthouse plan.
If I could add to it, our current jury room holds less than 200 people. And from even when I started in 1997, we have doubled probably the amount of judges that we have. And so the amount of jurors that are called are much more. And it becomes a fire hazard, it becomes a security hazard. Even when we try to bring them in at different times, it doesn't always work. And I don't get all the jurors that I summons either, so that can be an issue. So having the jury room expanded was a big deal to our constituents because of the fact that we needed the space for them to be able to sit and wait and have the proper area to serve. So, and they do go back and forth. They could have to come back to the jury room if the judge does not need them, and maybe another pool will take them. So that's very important to us.
Commissioner Goodson.
One more question. If you were to get the $2 million, and if everything went perfect and you were happy, could you project years that this would service Brevard County, or is that strictly on population and don't know?
I believe it would. I know we're not going to get a building anytime soon, and we think this is a good alternative. And what we do as judges, we rotate and we have a schedule as far as taking jurors. So there's a lot of us that will resolve as many cases as we can on Monday, knowing we're not going to be able to get a juror because of the numbers that the room is limited to. And so we'll start on a Tuesday, let some start on Monday, the other judges start on Tuesday, and that's about all we can do right now. I don't see us coming back for an ask anytime soon, and if you'll note, I don't think we've asked in a long, long time. So as painful as $2.5 million sounds, compared to a new building, we think that's pretty reasonable.
And if I may add, for all of the commission to know, the judge has, with the steering committee, that there is a plan, and one of the plans is where the courtrooms, so it would give additional courtrooms.
There's 2 additional courtrooms coming. We're expanding deposition rooms because it's kind of like when I told you about the family law cases, the depot rooms, maybe here to here, that's it. And you put 6-8 people in a room with a court reporter, it's bad by the end of the day. People need to leave and come back. So we believe the plan set out for Vieira is the best use of that space, and thanks to everybody with the county who's helped us with that. But Titusville is very lacking and not consumer friendly at all, and frankly dangerous until we get the criminals out of there.
Any more questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay, is there anybody from the tax collector's office here today? Lisa Cullen did call me. She has had to be in Tallahassee. She speaks every year at the Association of Tax Collectors, and she asked me for an excuse for an absence, and I've given it to her. So I wanted to explain why she wasn't here. I thought maybe she would have sent somebody, but she did not. But we're moving forward, if we can, to the Brevard County Property Appraiser. Anybody here from the Property Appraiser's office?
We did hear from the Property Appraiser's office and the Supervisor of Elections office They did give us notice that they would not be in a position to participate today because of the timing from their perspective, similar to what you heard with the sheriff, and being able to give you information for the upcoming budget.
Okay. So I guess we should go ahead and go to county departments. I'm just so thrilled with Pat's uniform here. I just can't stand it. Pat, you look very professional today, sir. Not that you don't look professional every day, but
Thank
you've got
you,
the
sir.
floor, sir.
It's been my honor to wear the uniform for 24 years now, so thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair, Commission. I appreciate you all letting me stand in front of you today to talk about our fire department. I will focus on taking a look at the financial overview with the board's support of the fire assessment in both 2018 and 2021. You have allowed the fire rescue to aggressively commit to allocating funds to what is important to all of us, our fire rescue personnel, infrastructure, and equipment. Through this presentation, we're going to show you what that commitment has accomplished, the challenges we have faced since this approval, and what the road looks like ahead. On July 17, 2008, the board authorized a reduction of the fire assessment by approximately 15%. In fiscal year 2009, we began a drawdown from our reserves from $14.2 million. The following fiscal year, department-wide reserves were reduced to approximately $12.2 million. Our chart on this slide picks up after an additional $5 million was drawn down from our reserves from fiscal year 2011 to 14. And as the slide indicates, again, we pick up on fiscal year 2015 and fiscal year 2019, approximately an additional $6 million was reduced in our reserves. On April 24th, 2018, as reserves continued to draw down, the board provided us an increase in the fire assessment that allowed continuation of fire rescue operations without further reserve drawdowns. You will note from the chart that between 2018 and 2021, the reserve level remained a consistent $1.2 million. We kept our expenses in line and for the next 3 years, but we knew this could not be sustained. In 2021, we had to come to the board and ask you to make a tough decision for a significant fire assessment increase. At that time, we committed to the board to accomplish various goals as part of the 7-year plan. First and foremost, the board told us to take care of personnel. Right behind that, board directed that, and we committed to take care of our infrastructure, including necessary expansion, and finally, we committed to take care of both our projected capital and equipment needs, including new capital and equipment replacements. You will see throughout the remainder of this presentation how we have honored these commitments and what we have planned to move forward. Now let's go to the next slide. Our funding system is based on a 55-45 split between fire assessment, which takes care of fire stations, fire operations. EMS is funded by ambulance revenues and the general fund. EMS is a countywide service that provides advanced life care and equipment and everything related to EMS. Again, this is a countywide system, so regardless of where you reside or have an episode in Brevard County, a rescue from BCFR will be there to provide aid and transport you to the appropriate hospital. The blue in this chart designates our ambulance billing revenues. As you may have noticed, coming out of COVID, we began to collect more, but significant general fund contribution increases have been required to bridge the gap in funding for our countywide EMS service, consistent with the commitments that I've highlighted. The yellow in this chart is labeled other revenue that signifies funding from federal reimbursement programs to offset EMS billing revenue where it pertains to Medicaid, Medicare, and their contracted rate of payments, as well as our contracted ambulance service for Patrick Space Force Base. Starting in year 2022, you will see the significant dedication to EMS through general fund commitment. As we proceed through this presentation, you will see how due to that 55-45 split, the commitment of the general fund is so important to us. On the next slide, the big chart here, the red line designates separations, which includes resignations, retirements, or separations for disciplinary reasons. This chart shows data from 2018 through 2023. Again, in the big chart, the blue line designates hiring, which includes who is onboarded with Brevard County Fire Rescue. Prior to 2018, BCFR was in a challenging state. We were not keeping up with new hires to replace separations. For Brevard County Fire Rescue, mandatory overtime has been a reoccurring problem. For years, our hiring and other efforts were not enough to successfully address mandatory overtime concerns. This contributed to attrition issues that we have faced within our fire rescue operations. We knew something had to be done. We had to think outside of the box and change the way we were doing business. With the board's support, we've done that to get where we are today. Starting with the Lean Six Sigma process improvements were made to first increase the onboarding process. This allowed us in 2018 to go from 2 to 3 new hire groups. Next, we hired a full-time recruiter who attends local job fairs and, most importantly, is in our local high school, capturing those young folks who may not be sure what their next step is after graduation. Or maybe they have wanted to be in the fire service their whole lives, and now we've been able to provide that conduit to help our local kids coming out of a high school flow into BCFR as qualified recruits. Our recruiter, Miss Annette Barrios, has played a large part in working with our Brevard Public School partners to develop the firefighter recruit program at Palm Bay High School. We're hoping to continue this relationship and not stop there. We plan to hopefully move this program to Cocoa and North Brevard areas. Both the county manager's office and our fire rescue leadership team are committed to working closely with our partners at the school board to further enhance this spectacular program. Another one of our top initiatives is our scholarship program. This program has proven extremely successful. You will note in 2023, we have built a cumulative number of 62 scholarships. We are currently accepting scholarships, and there's no goal projected on this chart, as we want to onboard as many promising recruits as possible that desire to be a part of Brevard County Fire Rescue. This is one of the many great initiatives that the board and our county leadership team has implemented that shows positive results. We are confident this is one of the most worthwhile investments we can make for our organization. Just to let you know, each scholarship recruit commits to stay with us for a minimum of 2 years, and each scholarship costs approximately $6,000 per recipient. This is one of the best investments we can make. As a result of these initiatives, we have been able to increase from 3 to 6 new hire classes per year. We know we're going to have to remain committed and augment these initiatives because our local fire departments around us are seeing what we are doing, and they're trying to jump on board. We know we can't be stagnant, and we greatly appreciate the board's strong support in these areas. I'm proud to share what we've accomplished. I think the data and numbers speak for themselves. As part of the board's approved fire assessment in 2021, we committed to the board 39 additional floaters over a 3-year period. This initiative was focused on helping us reduce overtime, especially mandatory overtime. This chart shows an increase in staffing from 454 to 534, with 3 new fire stations coming online, which would be Station 49 in West Viera, 27 in Westport St. John, and a new rescue in South Palm Bay. The extra personnel to facilitate this growth will be to the field by 2028, with the biggest increase in our numbers for the firefighter paramedic position. This is our most versatile and critical position that we need to keep our engines and ambulance staffed for advanced life support capabilities. This next slide illustrates our fire rescue stations and their locations. The blue on this map is our EMS or ambulance-only stations. The green, excuse me, is our fire and EMS or fire and ambulance stations combined with both units in the house. And the red is a fire engine only out of the station. As you see in this slide, prior to fiscal year 2022, we were not spending a large amount of funds on infrastructure. Simply as displayed in prior slides, we did not have the funds to commit additional resources and continue our operations without further drawing down that limited reserves. In 2023 and beyond, because of the board's investment, we remain committed to do this right. We are proud to highlight the very large investment that the board authorized as part of the fire assessment increase. You'll note we're also addressing the EMS needs in a similar manner. Additional general fund dollars have been needed and included and approved by the board thus far. It is our plan to submit a new budget proposal for fiscal year 24-25 that will enable us to continue moving forward as planned within the overall budget parameters recently set as goals by the board. Our intention is to stay the course per the board's direction. Similar slides for every department, as we all know. This one, our cumulative price increases. I believe this graph does tell a story of what is happening. But what's not in this graph is the assumptions that we made while developing that long-range plan that was built in the year 2020. We assumed a normal CPI growth. As we have all experienced, these increases have greatly exceeded those assumptions. We remain committed to allocating resources to accomplish the goals the board has established and approved. We will remain sensitive to our attrition rates and work to adjust employee salaries so we can continue recruiting and, just as important, retaining those recruits and our more seasoned members alike. I know our seasoned veterans and new recruits are very valued by the board and our entire leadership team. We recognize the challenges we face to accomplish all these goals that I've spoken to you about. We're not going to say it's not a challenge, because it is. As the fire chief, I know the public safety director, the county manager, and our entire leadership team are committed to making sure we find a way to get all this done and continue down the path the board has approved. This slide is an overview of our big ticket items we will address over the next 4 years from a new purchase and replacement perspective, moving towards an appropriate annual replacement strategy. We are a large system, so we do operate in high volumes of equipment. In the last slide, I highlighted the price increase of fire engines going up 100% over the last few years. In this slide, I would like to let you know another challenge that has become delivery time. We currently have 9 ambulances on order from 2023. The board authorized us to purchase ahead in fiscal year 24 for the purchase of 4 ready-built van-style ambulances. Again, the times we are in requires us to think outside the box and continue to move forward. Fire trucks are also on a 30-month build time, where it was less than a year prior to COVID. You will also see on this chart self-contained breathing apparatus for fiscal year 2025. I want to bring that to your attention because that's where you will see a spike in this slide. We're keeping our eye on the self-contained breathing apparatus as they work on a 15-year certified life cycle. And we want to maximize that timeline and make a purchase as the updated version comes out in that year. I wanted to make sure, again, that you knew why you saw that spike there in the fiscal year 25. You may see one interesting thing, a temporary fire station in our key additional purchases. You might ask, what is a temporary fire station? Well, on the previous slides, I hope you noticed all the big improvements that we have and had planned for our fire stations. It's important that we stay in those areas and serve the community during those rehabilitation efforts. Sometimes we can't find other means of temporary housing, so starting with Fire Station 86, we will have a temporary fire station that will allow us to remain in that area and serve the community just the same. I do look forward to one day when all our fire station upgrades are complete and we still have a temporary fire station to remain resilient for the community in case of a major emergency anywhere. We need to pivot and serve those folks. We'll have that temporary fire station ready at any time. We're seeking today board affirmation on a long-range plan as outlined and look forward to any other direction the board may want to offer. This is it for fire rescue operations, and now I'll turn it over to County Manager Frank Abate to focus on our lifeguard operations, which are part of the fire rescue's budget.
First, I don't know if the board has any questions of the chief on his presentation before I move forward.
Move on.
Okay.
Somebody have a question? No?
For lifeguard, the board will recall that you gave specific direction to myself and to the county attorney to meet with all the cities to deal with the issue of who and how we would pay for lifeguard services moving forward. This past year, the board, because of a variety of drownings that occurred in the previous year, had expanded lifeguard services. And what you wanted to see us do was to go to the cities and find out if they would, try to negotiate with them to split the cost of lifeguards services within municipalities. We've done that. We've had multiple meetings over the last year with the cities, and a result of those meetings, and you'll see that in the graph, we provided them information as it dealt with a full-time annual tower costs that is on the chart there, as well as seasonal costs, the number of hours that were involved, what would be covered, which would be all the ancillary equipment for the tower. We had roaming patrols, all that related equipment, and we shared that with each of the cities. What we show you on this chart only relates to lifeguard services within municipalities where the city is paying has the lifeguard services currently available and is paying for a portion of those services. That's on the left-hand side of the chart. In each of those instances, those were for seasonal services. What you see also is where in fiscal year 23, how many towers were in each of those communities. As a result of the discussions that we had, what you see on the right-hand side of the chart is what the cities have indicated to us they were willing to pay for this coming year. Interestingly enough, the city of Cocoa Beach made it very clear to myself and the county attorney that they not only did not want to pay 50%, but they didn't think they should be paying for any services, even though they were paying and are scheduled to pay $89,000 for the seasonal this year. In the case of Indy Atlantic and Melbourne Beach, you can see the amounts that they have communicated to us that they'd be willing to pay for the services that they would like to see, and that is in the FY25 towers, the amount of money. It's not the 50% allocation that the board was requesting, but this is the feedback that we have received thus far. I will tell you that I did receive a call as late as 11 o'clock yesterday morning, 11:30, from Indian Harbor Beach, who did not have lifeguard services, has not have it up to now, and was told that they were interested in it, providing lifeguard services, perhaps, but they think maybe they could do it cheaper, and so from their perspective, they're looking at it, but they did not want to sign up to do any of the services as we had proposed to them. We met with each of the cities, even those that currently do not have services, just to make sure we saw everyone and offered them the opportunity of what the board had asked. So Morris and I are available to answer any questions you may have. Obviously, we're going to be seeking direction as to what the board would like to do as we get ready to prepare the upcoming budget in light of the information that we have available thus far from the cities.
Can I ask a quick question? So we'll still have a tourism tax component of lifeguard services funded going forward. So 20% comes from tourism tax, 80% comes from general fund. Is that the way it's going to be going forward?
That's going to be up to the board, obviously.
Commissioner Tobias, you have something?
Yes, and I'll have a motion after this, but historically, in 2023, the board discussed this about a cost share with the cities. However, it was probably a little bit of a short notice to give the cities the time to make that correction. And against my better judgment, I went and thought that the cities would be partners. In fact, we took an extra step. The cities asked for an additional $898,000 because of safety, and the board took that step to provide extra lifeguards. So not only were we paying 100%, we were paying 100% plus that $898,000. At the time, this is 5/23, a little bit later, the board authorized by a 5-0 vote, and this is what the county manager is talking about, to go meet with the municipalities regarding lifeguard service cost share program at 50%. And I'll get to that 50% in just a minute. I've provided you a couple handouts so you can see, but I think we did this in good faith. And I have an email here from the mayor of the town of Indialantic. I highlighted, I look forward to working with our town manager and county manager Abate to reach an agreement moving forward past this fiscal year. So there was pretty good intent that the cities were interested in help sharing this cost with us. And then county manager went out there and he worked hard, but he actually, not only did he not come to a resolution, many of the cities decided what little they were paying wasn't even enough. And I was kind of insulted by what, and this handed out here highlighted what the city of Cocoa Beach you mentioned. It says, this is what was read at a meeting, and this is on their agenda. The actual residents of Cocoa Beach, as opposed to tourists that swim in the ocean at Cocoa Beach, are overall well-informed and good swimmers. I can't believe it's the tourists who typically need lifeguard services and who do not need to deal with riptides or going to the ocean when weather conditions make it unsafe, or the tourists themselves are very poor swimmers. That is not a way to encourage tourism, I don't think, but I think that's probably a pretty good indication how the cities have responded to our ask to cost share on this. So I've come to a potential solution that I think would meet everyone's needs, potentially provide for more lifeguard services as well as help with public safety here. So the third page in that handout is a grant program. My suggestion is very simple. 50% will be offered across the beaches regardless of who maintains the beach, and would come from general fund. The other 50% will be paid by either the municipality for municipality maintained beaches or general funds for county maintained beaches. Municipalities can choose to fund funding towards providing their own lifeguards if they believe, as Indian Harbor Beach does, that they're cheaper, or they can continue to use county services. Either way, they would be reimbursed that 50%. If we did this, we would realize an annual savings of just over $1 million. And I'm not suggesting this $1 million go into roads or paychecks or anything like that, because I think it needs to go into public safety. So that's the fourth sheet you have there. Two suggestions. Number one, as the county manager just alluded to, Indian Harbor Beach does not have lifeguard services, and they're interested in getting those lifeguard services. And with the savings that were realized when the cities, if they decide to participate, we could help fund other lifeguard services like in Indian Harbor Beach, or if Satellite Beach decided to participate in that. A seasonal tower is about $130,000. The county would provide a grant for half that, so we could have lifeguard services in Indian Harbor Beach as well as Satellite Beach if they decide to go, or other beaches. So we could actually expand that. And then the second second one is expand services at the Brevard Department of Health. Currently, there is a need at the Brevard County Department of Health for expansion. This expansion would be approximately $500,000 cost to the county. Expansion would provide more clinic space for Brevard residents while also shifting office space. The additional clinic space would allow for privacy in the department's programming, so when they deal with sensitive issues, they don't have to deal with it around folks that could cause all sorts of problems. So I have a motion here. The motion just effectuates the grant program that I just sent up and the savings that would be allocated to the Department of Health and for other beaches that decide to partake in that cost share.
I second for discussion.
Commissioner Goodson.
Question. I don't know for a fact, but does anybody know how many people died out there last year?
14.
How many?
14.
14. Were they, how many were during lifeguards being present? Does
Zero.
anybody know?
Zero.
No lifeguards, so they died after lifeguards went home. Is that what you're saying, 14?
Beaches that do not provide lifeguards.
Okay.
Open to the public, I can tell you that. I've written all those.
Okay, so 14 died. Now, out of that 14, were there any at Cocoa Beach that had lifeguards that died? I don't know.
Mr. Chair, the report we got back was pretty telling, that there wasn't one death where a lifeguard was present.
Correct.
That was extremely telling, that the lifeguards were working hard, were very effective. Obviously, lifeguards can't work at midnight.
Correct.
But when they were working,
Yeah.
in the areas in which they were working, they were highly effective. There was not one death. And
So would you assume that they were swimming after sitting at the bar, having 4 drinks, and then got out there? Only God knows, right?
unfortunately, there were children that, there were younger folks that had passed away, and I think any life lost is tragic,
Yeah. Especially
and I
if
want
you
to I want to prevent that as much as possible, and I want to make sure that the cities help us prioritize safety.
I totally agree, but sometimes you're not going to ever be able to help stupid, okay? But I agree with you. I like what you're doing, John.
Can
Thank
I
you,
make one
Chair.
comment?
Commissioner Feldner,
Can I just
go
make
ahead.
One comment on that point. I'll bet good money that every hotel in Brevard County has a rule that you can't go in their pool between 11 p.m.
sure.
and 6 a.m.
Yeah.
And they do it for exactly that reason.
For the bar or for nobody's watching?
They don't want anybody going from the bar to the pool.
Okay, I got you.
I have a question for Pat. Pat, how many people were pulled out of the ocean and saved by the lifeguards?
It was hundreds. I don't have an exact number, but it was in the hundreds.
If I remember correctly, it's 450. Huge amount of people pulled from the ocean and saved.
May I?
This is it, yeah, absolutely. Commissioner Pritchett.
I think there's really not a debate whether or not if a lifeguard's there or not. It's definitely going to have impact in saving lives. The question is, and we're just responsible for us to have them as a county. County manager, if we propose this and the cities just won't do it again, do we have any ability to have them pay it? I'm going to throw out a really out-of-the-box idea, and I probably said this before. Would it be possible just to take the beaches back and bring them under the county and not have them be city-controlled anymore? Let me throw this out. Why? When we went through the COVID and we were trying to keep beaches open, we couldn't. They started closing beaches and almost making it hard for county to keep beaches open too. And I realized then that the public access to beaches. So
I have to ask the county attorney, but I believe the beaches we're talking about are where there are municipal parks. And so that's where, a challenge would be in that regard.
That's correct.
okay, so on that, I don't know why they're not paying 100% of the lifeguards. And I know we discussed this before, so I just think it's going to have to be a responsibility they're going to have to step up to the table with. So Commissioner Tobias, I think this is a very fair proposal. I would have also gone with 100% if you did it, moving it over. So you know what? You have you're responsible for your assets. If you have them, you need to take care of them and make sure people are safe in your public area. So that's why I seconded your proposal, and
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner
can I read the motion?
Absolutely.
3 parts. Create a matching grant program for lifeguard services, which will be available to all municipalities that maintain beaches along Brevard's coast. For beaches owned by municipalities, this program will provide for a grant of 50% of the county cost for lifeguard services within each municipality, with a match requirement of 50% from said municipality. The funding of the grant will be paid for out of general funds. The grant program will also allow each municipality to choose their level of service with the county or use funding for their own lifeguard services. Number 2, direct staff to inform municipalities with a deadline prior to July 1st for their response for level of service. And number 3, there will be savings from the general fund, even if every municipality decided to take advantage of this grant and allocate available funds of approximately $500,000 to the Brevard County Department of Health relocation of office space for the purpose of expanding their clinic. That is the motion, Mr. Chair.
I had a second, sir.
And there's a second by Commissioner Pritchett.
Can I ask one question, just again?
Commissioner Feldner.
There's no tourism tax that's going to be part of this? I see here strictly funding from general fund.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
Yes, that is correct. It became a little bit difficult where we would use TDT revenue for the county beaches as opposed to the municipal beaches, and then advertising. It just added a layer of, an extra layer of bureaucracy that we don't necessarily need to deal with and realize a savings.
Okay.
My only concern is what do they do? What do we do if they say no? And most of the people that have called me in regards to this have indicated to me very clearly that we are the ones through the tourist tax that are bringing the visitors to the beach, and we are the ones that should be paying for it. So all of these people that's what a couple of mayors have said to me, and I didn't want to get into arguments with them, but to a certain extent, that's true. Because of the tourist development tax and because of us advertising that we have great beaches, we are bringing a variety of people to the beach. So the question then is if we're bringing it to the beach, why aren't we paying for it? That's what their question is. It's not mine. I'm just stating what I've talked to people about. So I don't know what's going to happen in the event that they all say no.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
Well, there are 3 main cities here. We got Cocoa Beach, Indy Atlantic, and Melbourne Beach. So we'll start with Cocoa Beach. The 50% cost share would amount to about $750,000. Parking revenue at just Cocoa Beach for fiscal year 2024 is budgeted at $3.7 million. So in other words, they're making 5 or 6 times the amount in parking revenue. Not to mention the more than $400,000 Brevard County provides Cocoa Beach in TIF spending. And you're going to hear that Cocoa Beach doesn't have enough money, but they do have enough money in their current budget for $7,000 in City Hall caricature pictures. I don't know what the hell that is, but I may want to go to Cocoa Beach to find out how they're wasting $7,000.
Well, there's a lot of characters in Cocoa Beach.
$800,000 for an irrigation system on a golf course that's regularly closed due to flooding. Indy Atlantic, we're asking for $230,000 in cost share, but they have parking revenue of 3 times that amount at $747,000. Now, they too are going to claim they don't have enough money, but they magically have $6,000 for holiday lighting, $2,500 for a Halloween party, and $256,000 for plants in the median of Fifth Avenue. So then we go to Melbourne Beach, which is my favorite. They were asking for $127,000 in cost share. Their parking revenue is a little bit more modest, $202,000, so it's plenty. They too will claim poverty, but they spend money on decorative light poles, town banners. This is a good one, restoring dolphin carvings, and free classes in yoga, tai chi, Qigong. I don't know what Qigong is. And my favorite, a My Musical Tree class. my staff looked up, Qigong can be thought of as a movement you do for certain situations as opposed to Tai Chi form, which is a series of movements that would work on the entire body in a flowing sequence. I read that and I still don't know what that means. But the point is, they will be prioritizing this over safety at the beaches. And if they want to make that argument to their taxpayers and their residents, they're more than welcome to do it. But we need to make an argument here that we want to be partners, and we want to take the savings that we realize by that by expanding lifeguard services to where they're not currently available. So yes, the cities are going to be mad, but this is part of their responsibility of being a city, is keeping their residents and the people that visit their area safe.
Commissioner Tobias as well. So Cocoa Beach is making over $3 million in parking revenues on the beaches.
Parking revenue for Cocoa Beach is budgeted 2024, $3.752 million.
Okay, and their cost share of the lifeguards were $770,000?
$756,182
Okay, so
would be the 50%.
a good guess, if the TDC wasn't advertising Cocoa Beach, they probably wouldn't be getting that type of parking revenue in. So they're running a pretty good net bottom line there. Not only that, the businesses that are also very successful because of all the tourism dollars. I don't think they really want to make that argument. That is just a really bad business argument to make with us, because I think we're smart enough to know better. So
I didn't make it, they did.
I know, I just thought I would do it in public since that, so, yeah. It's just,
Commissioner, I'm sorry, you finished, Commissioner?
I am, thank you, sir.
Yeah. Commissioner Feldman.
Just to echo what Commissioner Pritchett said just a moment ago, absolutely on the beaches, tourism has a positive economic impact in every municipality. There's no debating that fact. So I think
I think we're probably pretty close to the vote now. Yep. But here's my prediction. I'm going to support this motion today, but here's my prediction. None of them are going to do this, and we're going to be right back where we started. So I'm willing to try, but it ain't going to work. So there's a motion on the floor, seconded by Commissioner Pritchett. Did somebody have something to say over there? Commissioner Abadi.
My question is, I believe the direction we're getting is to develop this grant program, offer it to the cities. If they don't participate, the budget would be built without lifeguard services for municipalities that don't participate in the program. That's what the board's telling us?
Can I say something?
Certainly.
Mr. Abate, but there's ways before that we've been able to change colors of funds. Is there a way, if they don't participate with this and we have to add extra funds to what we do as a county for the cities, that we can raise rates on that to help cover these costs? I know there's a way to do it, and I know you're looking at me like that. Is there any other funds that we reimburse to the cities that we wouldn't have to reimburse to cover their lifeguard cost? Something to think about moving into the future.
Yeah,
I'm not going to put you on the spot right now. You'd have to think through
But it's
it.
something, we would,
You'd have to look
look
at it.
at, but if
Okay.
that's the board direction, but I'm not aware of what that could be.
Well, I think we've beat this horse to death here, and we're willing to go ahead. Motion on the floor by Commissioner Tobias, seconded by Commissioner Pritchett. All the discussion's been heard. Did you have something else? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The motion carries unanimously. Yes, we'll take a 5-minute break, and then we'll get back. Thank you. you very much. So, I guess we are going to go to Public Works. Hi, Mark.
Sir, how you doing?
You have the floor, sir.
All right. Well, thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Mark Bernath, Public Works Director. I have with me Susan Jackson, the PW Assistant Director, Road and Bridge Manager, Tammy Thomas Wood, the PW Operations Manager, Karina Gum, Traffic Operations Manager, and Skip Bell, Facilities Manager. The primary focus of today's brief is going to focus on road and bridge and traffic successes and challenges. So the first slide is road and bridge and a historical 10-year trend. This shows actual spending and center lane miles for the road program over the last 10 years. Prior to 2018, as some of you know, there was no formal road program with recurring and dedicated funding. Also, with aging roads and increased population, it created a perfect storm for roads to fall into a poor to failed state. Since 2018, we exceeded our goals annually and treated 710 miles of the total 770 represented on this chart as depicted since 2018. In accordance with board direction, we've been laser focused on the original goal of avoiding roads from falling into reconstruction. In FY 20 and 21, there are some anomalies. You could see that the graph shows higher spending. That's because of additional funding that we took from a cost and feasible Babcock Road widening project and decided to resurface or reconstruct our county portion of that road. But otherwise, our dedicated spending continues to increase with paving costs. And I know several have made the comment that we have seen increased costs, and there's nothing different here. Since 2019, we have seen a 46% increase in what it costs us to do our paving program. And while I'm not going to cover some of the other areas, I did want to just mention that when we look at our infrastructure program, we've seen 150 to 200% on some of our roads, bridges, and facilities. Road preservation is still in a pilot program, and it started in 2022. And that is really to protect the board's investment and extend the life expectancy of our roads and maintain it at a higher level for a longer period of time, vice a traditional pave and decline approach. Time will be the ultimate test, but these treatments have proved out across Florida and nationally, and by all measures are meeting our plan at this time. In 2019 and 2023, we had a third-party consultant perform a pavement condition assessment with pavement condition indices depicted in orange and blue, respectively. Effectively, the PCI, Pavement Condition Index, is a report card of sorts, and it shows the countywide PCI average is now an 85 out of 100. There's been a significant increase in the miles of roads that are good, which is depicted on the left from 86 to 100 PCI, and a decrease in all other categories, but specifically at-risk roads, which straddle from 31 of a very poor to 56, which is fair. All great indicators that our overall road network health and investment by the board and your trust in Public Works is well placed. As indicated on the slide, during the same period, centerline miles increased by 18 or 4.8 miles per year through developer-built public roads as well. This did slightly increase our overall PCI and contribute to that, but it also means more of 18 miles of roads, sidewalks, mowing, drainage that will need our attention in the future within existing resource-constrained staff. Shifting to road infrastructure backlog, as depicted, we significantly drove down our backlog and our at-risk, which is of falling into reconstruction miles per board direction, down from 101 to 42 miles. Some quick observations. In the District 1 area, which has the most miles. We still have some work to do, although the rest of the county continues, as with the rest of the county, it continues to decrease. In the D2 area, we have the most backlog there due to the amount of aging road infrastructure and several projects such as Hampton Homes, where we've deferred paving as well as for utilities as well as for soil projected areas so that we don't needlessly waste money. We're looking to temporarily shift going forward the D2 apportionment of resurfacing towards reconstruction so that we can fund the projects that are needed. In the D3 district, it has the least amount of roads in the county, and D4 has the newest roads, but both of them are tracking well, and we continue to march down on our backlogs and at-risk roads. D5 has the most miles of reconstruction, but similar to D2, our plan is to shift some of the D5 resurfacing funding to supplement and expedite D5 reconstruction going forward. This next slide is our projection for our 5-year plan. The past several slides discussed where we are and previously as well as this year. This represents our 5-year projected road funding and mileage plan as we move into 2025 and beyond. We begin scaling back on resurfacing centerline miles, primarily to stay within our budget as we focus on more costly, multi-lane, arterial, and collector roads. So, for example, Wickham Road, or Aurora Road, Evans Road, and many others, as well as more costly reconstruction. While we're continuing to increase our preservation, we're planning to stay within 16% of the overall budget. And over the next 5 years, we plan to treat 762 miles as compared to the prior 5 years where we only did 560. So more miles, preserving them longer, and keeping them at a higher rate. Always with some manageable backlog, but pending Sorrel and other utility conflicts where, again, we don't want to go in and resurface or reconstruct for them to come in behind us and tear up the road. We plan to complete all reconstruction and most at-risk roads over the next 5 years. Beyond 2029, the program pivots to resurfacing and preservation focus in perpetuity to protect our investment and extend our network in a higher condition without roads ever failing into a poor, failed condition again. It is the dedicated reconstruction funding that sets up a modest shift to focus on capacity and other shortfalls that I will discuss in the next several slides. Of note, we are looking at a potential EPA federal grant opportunity with a $0 match for road preservation. Shifting focus real quickly to drainage, want to thank the board for their support of our drainage program and your continued support with resources and equipment. Over the last 7 years, we continued allocating labor and equipment resources to grow and sustain our countywide drainage maintenance crew as depicted on the right of the chart. The goals of increasing the staffing there was to be more proactive, reduce average cleaning times from 10 to 12 years and beyond to down to 3 to 5 years. We're reducing flooding in flood-prone areas and also improving drainage. And nowhere is that more evident than on Merritt Island during the Hurricanes Ian and Nicole in 2022. In addition to the 3 drainage crews, we have 4 Kaiser walking excavators purchased with ARPA funding that operate full-time under the road and bridge maintenance teams, cleaning ditches where the drainage crews cannot access. We also have 3 long boom track hose, 2 funded from ARPA, that clean the wide and deep canals such as the Satilli Canal, Deer Run canals, Mims-Scottsmore ditches, and many others. The chart reflects a combined mileage of countywide and road and bridge maintenance efforts. Specifically for countywide drainage, we were averaging about 25 miles of drainage per year in 2017 and 18, where now we're averaging 80 to 90 miles per year. We continue to grow on and build on past successes with the resources the board has provided us. Not depicted but critical is proactively cleaning culverts and structures using VACCON equipment, replacing old and failing metal culverts under county roads, and more than 40 drainage projects which are currently in our engineering shop and/or out on the street doing construction. Shifting once more, this slide shows our bridge program for the next 5 years. We have 50 bridges. The top graph shows a significant funding gap that is influenced by costly bridge replacement as they continue to age and deteriorate. PW first brought this issue forward in FY20. We started accumulating funds for several key bridge replacements to be discussed in a moment. However, there is no dedicated recurring funding. As shown on the graph, we have funded $10.4 million over this 5-year period, but we also have a $17 million unfunded requirement. FY25 is shown much higher than the rest of the graph if you look in green. That's largely due to Sea Ray Bridge, which is funded, and we received the bids earlier today. But it also shows in that same year that West Central Avenue Bridge in Merritt Island, as well as the North Banana River Drive South and Tucker Lane designs are unfunded, all three of which are needed. In FY26 through 29, only routine maintenance and rehab has recurring funding, and again, I'm referring to the green line. The bar chart below that represents bridges requiring targeted maintenance, rehabilitation, and replacement per year based on FDOT or the county's third-party consultant. To the left are projects the PW team has actively been working on the past few years, and as I mentioned earlier on this slide, I would highlight some bridges. The James Clark Pedestrian Bridge recoating project is awarded and should be starting in April or May. Sea Ray Bridge construction, as I alluded to, we received bids today and we should be starting in the coming months. There are 4 Merritt Island bridges where we have feasibility studies. However, out of the 4, only the Girard Bridge is on the National Bridge Inventory based on the length of the bridge, which limits our federal grant possibilities, but we are still reviewing other options. At this time, we're planning in the coming months to bring forward the cost to the Central Mainland Benefit District and then later to the board to position ourselves for that grant. The Central Bridge, again on Merritt Island, is in design to be awarded in the coming months, but that still leaves us today with no viable solution for the North Banana River Drive bridges, which there are 2. Miko Bridge is in construction and proceeding as planned, as previously briefed to the board. Mathers Bridge, we continue to invest in preventative measures, major component replacements, security, and corrosion protection is coming. Shifting once more to sidewalks. We have long recognized the need to address sidewalk deficiencies due to aging infrastructure, tree roots, settling, utilities, cuts, heavy equipment, etc. on our sidewalks. We lack the resources to address paving, capacity, other projects, safety, and sidewalks all at once. The proposed plan would address safety as well as American with Disability Act concerns. The program would focus only on repair and replacement, not new sidewalks. Similar to where our county found ourselves with roads back in 2017, we have many sidewalks to address, and what we're proposing is a 5-year plan to start working towards this backlog from within existing public works funds. There's approximately 720 miles of sidewalks, and they grow each year, as I alluded to previously, with new development, and the problem continues to increase with the age of our sidewalks. It's impossible at this time to give a true magnitude of the problem as we haven't performed a comprehensive assessment, but we have estimated 30% require repair and replacement at a cost of $27 million. Our plan is a modest first step, planning over 5 years to spend $4.64 million from existing MSTUs as well as gas taxes over the next 5 years, where we will prioritize equitably based on needs and condition and mileage. But as I alluded to, we still need more to make up the funding gap. Now I'm shifting to capacity challenges. So traffic operations analyzes traffic volumes and monitors roadways at or nearing capacity. By capacity, in its simplest terms, I'm referring to congestion, not maintenance, repairs, or the road paving program. Updated on the slide is a list of roads based on the latest 2022 TPO counts. The 2023 data should be available to us in summer 2024. Arranged by Transportation Impact Fee Benefit District, the majority of our capacity challenges still remain in the Central and South Mainland Benefit Districts. The roads that are listed in red are over capacity. The new roads that have been added to the list since the last time I briefed this board are italicized in black. Those include Barnes Boulevard from Morrell to US 1, Pineda Causeway from I-95 to Wickham, St. John's Heritage Parkway from US 192 and to Emerson. We have several nearing capacity roads that went down unexpectedly during this 2022 count. The data, however, is on the tail end of COVID and is expected to bounce back. As we re-examine several of the roads in this new count this summer, we'll reevaluate, but we have several projects, including Grissom Parkway, Riverside Drive, and certain segments of Hollywood where we're in different stages of the study and or design process. But again, we are expecting those numbers to bounce back, and we'll either continue with those proposed projects or make a determination if they are no longer needed. Continuing to implement ITS solutions to reduce congestion and increase safety using advanced technologies consistent with the Brevard County ITS Master Plan is still our most economic and affordable way forward. Last year, we completed a vehicle detection system upgrade project at 19 signalized intersections on Palm Bay Road and nearby signals. When we looked at both the before and after studies, it showed signal operation and traffic flow improvement. We're continuing to identify similar corridors throughout the county that would benefit from this type of technology. We've also increased the number of signals from 292 out of the 376 signals that we manage that are now online for the Traffic Management Center monitoring and operating capabilities. The degree we can manage unfunded capacity improvements projects through ITS relies on our continued expansion of ITS infrastructure, staff, and the development of our new Traffic Management Center, which will be going out on the street for construction later this spring. Knowing the list of unfunded capacity continues to grow, we also initiated a third-party countywide traffic congestion mitigation study last month. It's going to be focused on strategic improvement to safety and travel reliability, identify roads congested or forecasted to be congested to guide us on what future projects we can afford to do, utilizing a combination of ITS, low-cost technology measures in combination with high-benefit, high-cost intersection capacity efficiency improvements such as turn lanes or intersection improvements. The strategies that have the greatest benefit and potential would be prioritized, and we're expecting that report next January. Lastly, I wanted to just reiterate that the staff produced a revenue-generating options report for capacity and maintenance and provided to the board in February 2022, and we also provided that to each new commissioner during their in-briefs. It provides many ways we could raise funding to address some of the capacity challenges. There's too much to go into here, but my team and I are happy to discuss further at any commissioner's convenience. And with that, I will take any questions.
Mark, let me ask you a question. I assume we are charging impact fees today, are we not?
We are.
Okay, how much are those impact fees?
So impact fees actually fall under planning and development, so I could not give you that specifically. I think John might be able to help.
The usual measure that we use to talk about impact fees for transportation purposes, we charge impact fees for other things as well, but for transportation, which I think is what you're referring to,
Yes.
is about $4,400, a little over $4,400 per single-family unit.
Now, how, once you receive those, how are those monies spent? Are they spent to help Mark? Are they spent in another area? Are they just spent, are they put in a general fund? What happens to them once we get them?
No, those go to Public Works for transportation improvements to increase capacity or deal with capacity-generated problems that are associated with the transportation system.
And I would think that we have quite a few impact fees that are coming in. Do we need to raise the impact fees? Do we need to do something there to be able to get some additional money? Or what do we need to do here?
That is obviously, a decision for the board, but as I mentioned earlier, our largest concerns are in the central and south mainland benefit districts, and I don't think there's enough new development to actually keep up with the cost of the infrastructure, the capacity challenges that we've laid out in this slide.
Okay. Commissioner Goodson.
Question. The impact for a home, though, total is around 10,000, something like that, right?
I can't recall the exact amount for all of the impact fees.
Right, all of them.
Combined. Yes, it's definitely more. The greatest number is for transportation by quite a bit, though.
And then it would be a different amount for commercial, correct?
Yes, each individual category, there's a long table and list of different classifications for each one of them. So yes, for example, a drive-through restaurant like a McDonald's or something, they actually have very high impact fees. Most people would think, but the studies and the science behind it all is pretty solid. And so every different category of commercial and residential has a different number. But we usually talk about the single-family residential for the most part.
But when you say 4,400, that kind of would scare people. That's not near enough. But when you say 10,000 per house, that's a lot of money.
When you look at the total for all of the impact fees, it's a significantly larger number, yes.
Thank you.
Commissioner Goodson, thanks for asking that question.
Yeah, there's a variety. The board has considered impact fee increases in the past. There's been a moratorium in the past. And there are certain legal requirements that recently came into play that if any consideration for increase in impact fees were to be given, you have to go through that process. Tad is here. He could address that, or Morris, who are very familiar with those issues.
Tad, do you want to answer that, or Morris? Who wants to handle that?
The county manager is correct. There's a process before you raise the impact fees that involves a study that has to be performed to establish the basis for those impact fees, if they're reasonably based on the need for, in the case of the transportation impact fees specifically, for the capacity improvements that are required and the appropriate cost for those. So it's a process that would have to be gone through. I know the county did conduct a study at some time in the not too distant past that was received by the board, I believe. I believe that was about a year-long process, if I'm correct.
Yeah, I believe it was a year-long process, and that study was presented to the board, I think, in 2016. But Morris is correct. There's a study, and then there's a process for the amount that the fee can be increased based on the current fee in that study, and that it's laid out in statute. It's a rather involved process if the board wanted to consider that.
Commissioner Goodson.
Question. Is that a state requirement, a county requirement?
It's under Florida statute, sir.
Okay. And in doing that, there's a rate that you can only increase, like 5%, 2%, 10%, or what?
There are limitations on how much it can be increased. I'm not certain of the exact amount.
I got you.
There's a requirement for supermajority if you go more than 5%, and then the study has to be done within so many months of whenever you enact an increase to support that. So in order to increase impact fees at this point, we'd have to do a new study and go through the expense and the time to do that.
So can somebody tell me how long that would take to be able to implement a new impact fee? Is it a year? Is it 18 months?
I think that the last study was done probably, I think it was about a year before it went back to the board. I thought we were going to.
It would take close to a year. It's a pretty extensive effort. The reason it is so extensive is that they have to look at how we are spending and have been spending money for the last several years in terms of supporting increases in capacity for transportation. And I'm referring only to transportation in this case. And how much we're spending on maintenance versus capacity, and what the revenues are for that are supporting it all. And then they look at the growth, they look at the changes in the volume, traffic volumes and demand on the roadway system, and they calculate all that out, and it becomes a study that then could withstand a legal challenge, as well as accurately represent the situation for the commission to consider. And again, if it was above a certain amount, above wherever that currently is, regardless of why it was at the number that it's at, then it would require, if I remember correctly, I haven't looked at it in quite a long time, but I believe it would take a majority plus one.
May I?
Yeah, Commissioner Pritchett, please.
Mr. Denninghoff, first of all, I want to thank you. I'm just remembering back through the years when this was such a daunting thing when I first came in. And that study that was done was actually with Commissioner Fisher, and he left it for me, and I looked it over. And I had called you up and we talked, and you had mentioned, because again, you have to weigh all that with how it affects businesses coming in, but you had mentioned there was an ability to do, I think it was a gas tax, a penny on something at one time. And when we talked, and that would kind of share the love with everybody who drives through here. But I remember you had mentioned that, and we had talked about it as a commission for a while. But we really started doing a lot better with, Frank's just can't wait to say something right now. So go ahead, sir, and I'll jump right back in.
There's a variety of potential options. Impact fees are one. There are several other ones. Mark referred to the February 2022 report. It outlines them all very thoroughly, what's involved, how much money could be generated by each of them, which ones require board action by majority, supermajority votes. Some of them have to go to the voters. So we did outline that, and that's what Mark was referencing earlier. And I think that's what you're talking about. Gas tax is one of those options. Yes, sir,
because we were looking at that time. We didn't have to do it because we were starting to get good increases in revenues. But that seemed like a lot less painful impact for people that are here. Because, you know, if you're going to give more impacts to businesses, they're going to share the love with the rest of the community. So that was, I remember Mr. Denninghoff, you said that was a really good option, but we weren't, of course, at that time, we weren't ready to do anything different. So I don't know if you guys want to find that and consider it. Was that a blue ribbon panel report we got it, or is that what that was?
Well, I forget the year now, but I think it's 2014. The Blue Ribbon Committee was what it was called, met in this room over a period of about 9 months, and they issued a report, made a presentation before the board. What they had suggested, if I recall, I haven't gone back and reviewed it in quite a long time, but my recollection is that they recommended a couple of things. At the time, the moratorium on impact fees was still in place. They recommended that be removed. They also recommended that that a gas tax be implemented, an increase in gas taxes be implemented. They looked at the infrastructure sales tax as an option at that time as well. And so what they had suggested was, if I recall, was to do the gas tax, which the board can implement by themselves with a supermajority. But then I think they wanted to look at the infrastructure sales tax, and as soon as it would be implemented, then to roll back whatever increase was associated with the gas tax. as an interim measure because the size of the challenge was of such magnitude that impact fees and gas taxes by itself simply wouldn't really get the job done, and the only thing that was really going to do it was the infrastructure sales tax. The report that we were talking about that Mark put together was, as Frank said, very comprehensive, and it shows all of that in there. Obviously, it's a couple of years old now, but the concepts are all the same, and the statutory underpinnings for it all is still the same.
So moving forward, you guys are going to be left with this because we're about to leave you. But that might be some data for you to look at moving forward on how you want to make decisions. At the time, none of the commissioners wanted to raise any extra taxes on the community. But again, we are starting to grow and do better. So that might be something for you if they gave you guys that data to look at. But Mr. Denenhoff, I do want to also mention at that time, we were looking at a daunting amount of roads and reconstruction. And so what we did, and thank you for the leadership, is we started working on roads to keep them from getting into that situation. And we really dug our way out of that hole, and it's really showing it. So I just wanted to throw that out to you right now because I've been so hard on you through the years, so I thought I'd better give you something nice here. But I want to say thank you for that publicly in front of all your peers here, sir. Thank you.
Jason.
Okay, then, Commissioner Goodson. Yes, sir.
Question. Would you, in permitting, now see more or less in permitting tying onto a county road by a developer? You know, usually you have deceleration lanes, acceleration lanes, sidewalk lighting, four-laning for a period of time. Is that helping offset some of the construction for the county by enforcing stricter designs?
In some circumstances, it can help because we can program in with a proposed development. We can program either with additional public funds or entirely by the development improvements that are needed in a specified or local area. As far as the general capacity of the general system, it really doesn't help us very much. And even with the gas taxes, which is important amount of money, it just isn't enough to do it. You'd have to double or triple the gas tax, or excuse me, the impact fees to even begin to be a substantial amount of money. And even at that point, in terms of compared with the problem that we have, it's a lot of money. If I was talking about that, that'd be a lot of money. The issue is and you can't bond impact fees, for example. So if you were going to try to leverage the money so that you could get improvements now and avoid inflation, for example, while you could pay them and pay the debt service on bonds with impact fees, you couldn't use the impact fees in order to get the bonds. You'd have to dedicate and commit either gas tax revenue or infrastructure sales tax revenue or even the general fund. Not saying we'd do that. I'm saying you'd have to, the impact fees are just not something you can legally use to bond.
Commissioner Fellner.
I appreciate you just pointing that out because that was on the tip of my tongue. And I think the reason for that is there's nothing to say that there'll be new construction next year. I think we assume that, but as far as servicing debt, you couldn't guarantee that.
That's correct.
That fair?
That's the exact problem with the impact fees.
So also on the gas tax, it's not sustainable. I mean, these are the words from, Department of Transportation that says people are driving electric cars or cars are more efficient or, all of these things. And that, it was really easy when everyone had to, put gas in their vehicle because you paid at the pump. The gas stations were the collectors of the tax. But that's not the way it is now, and it certainly won't be in the future.
That's correct. The actual revenue per mile driven by a vehicle is going down. The total revenues are going up because the total number of cars is going up, but that is getting eroded away by electric vehicles, as you say, and the improvements to gas mileage is there, but the impact on the road's the same. The car is still on the road. It's still taking up part of the capacity. And so that's a problem. And so it's kind of like inflation in effect. It's hurting the actual spending power that we have based on the number of, or the amount of demand that we have on the road, meaning the traffic volume.
Commissioner, just real quickly, in that February 2022 report, it actually showed that through a combination of multiple options, as John laid out, for example, the infrastructure sales tax, the gas tax, there was a half dozen of them that we said, or we showed that were available to the board. With all of them implemented, we could catch up in 20 to 25 years. Again, I haven't looked at the report in a while, but if we don't start somewhere, it's very difficult to catch up.
Well, that was the purpose for the question in the beginning. So at some point in time, maybe this board, probably for certain the next board, needs to come up with a solution to raising some additional monies. So I don't think we're going to be able to do it today, but is there any other questions for Mark?
Yes.
Commissioner Tabaya.
When it comes to gas tax, as well as, I guess this would more be for Commissioner Pritchett here, can you think of a more regressive fee than a impact fee and a gas tax?
No, sir, I can't, but that's why it's going to be for them. 'Cause
Yeah,
I'm not gonna be
I just
I'm
asked
not going to be doing it,
future
so,
boards.
yeah.
Equity sounds good until it adds 5% on your
I
first
know.
home. It does not have an impact on someone buying a very expensive home, but a first-time home buyer, even today, it's quite a
Yeah.
bit of money, but these are.
Let me, can I, sir, just real
Commissioner
quick?
Felder.
I'm sorry. And I think an important point here is that people who move here and buy existing home, there's no impact fee there. If you buy a 20-year-old home, that you're not paying an impact fee just because you moved here from up north. So it's only the folks, and they could be Brevard County residents for many years who are maybe even downsizing, and they're the ones paying the impact fee. So I think there's, that's just a hard concept for folks to understand, that it's not a tax on new residents.
If you guys look at it, you might want to look at something that's very small that builds up. But I did want to throw out that one point that we didn't have to do any of it because we came up with an incredibly creative idea that helped kind of level the playing field there with something that was overwhelmingly expensive to dig out. So just put your thought on and see what you come up with here moving out, maybe, yeah.
Okay, any more questions of Mark? Hearing no questions, thank you very much, Mark. Let's go to the next.
Would be Melissa.
I believe that's Melissa. Hi, Melissa.
All right, good afternoon, Commissioners. Melissa Powers, the Director of Human Resources. Today, my focus for this presentation. There we go. Is that better?
That's much better,
Okay.
thank you.
I will start over. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Melissa Powers, Director of Human Resources. Today, my focus on this presentation will be in three areas. The first being our group health plan, to include a discussion of the premium contribution history, the health plan financial summary, and sustainability and simplification. Excuse me. The second area we're going to look at is our property casualty insurance program, including our projected premiums and our reserves. And finally, our third area will be our recruiting and retention challenges and successes, which includes some information regarding our vacancy trends and our recruiting efforts. First, just a reminder that our group health plan covers more than just BOCC employees. The charter offices and other various agencies participate in our program. In total, the plan currently covers 4,162 employees and retirees, and an additional 3,559 dependents. So currently, that totals 7,721 covered lives. All right, sorry about that. The employer contributions are paid by the department and agencies, and they are the primary source of funding for the program. This rate applies to all full-time active employees. Since the program began, the county has built up significant reserves in the group health plan fund. Because of this, the county reduced contribution rates or kept them flat for several years. The high point of the reserves fund was in 2019. As reserves declined, the employer contributions began increasing again in 2022. In 2023 and 2024, the contribution rates increased by 8%. The group health plan is a fully funded self-insured program. So what does that mean? The county pays for administrative fees, claims, and stop-loss coverage or reinsurance for large medical claims over $1 million. This includes both medical and pharmacy claims. And I apologize, the slide's out of order. This was the contribution rate that I had just spoke about, where it currently for this year is $1,071 per employee. Again, that's full-time active employees per month. All right, this shows the revenue and expenses of the group health plan for the past 5 fiscal years. You can see at the end of year balances or the reserves is dropping each year as the plan's expenses are exceeding the revenue. Note the increasing pharmacy claims as we're now going to look at the trend next. This shows the plan's trend as of December 2023. The plan has an overall trend of about 2% for both medical and pharmacy claims. This means the cost of medical and pharmacy claims is rising at about 2% overall. When you break it out, the medical claim trend is pretty flat, but the pharmacy trend is running about 9%. Pharmacy claims are definitely driving the trend. In this chart, the red line shows the medical and pharmacy claims. The green line shows the revenue less administrative costs, and the blue bar indicates the number of persons in the plan. Our annual reporting requires us to show financial summaries of the plan on a calendar year. When looking at the calendar year reporting, it also shows that the expenses are exceeding revenue, which is causing the reserves to be depleted. As the cost of claims goes up, the required reserve levels also go up. This shows how the fund balance and reserves are going down and getting closer to the required reserve levels. This brings us to the topic of how to ensure sustainability of the program. How can we positively impact the financial health of the plan? These are some possibilities we have recently presented to the Employee Benefits Insurance Advisory Committee. The first is continuing to increase the primary source of funding of the plan, which is employer contributions. Another area we're looking at is the over 26 dependent surcharge. Currently, it's at $100 a month per dependent. We're looking at increasing this to better cover the cost in the plan. Thirdly, we're looking at compressing the PPO and PPO preferred into one single PPO option. And finally, we are continuing to explore narrow networks for targeted services which have been successful. MedFast is a good example. Members only pay a flat $30 copay when they go to a MedFast urgent care center, which are available throughout the entire county. board input and direction on these ideas is valuable. In addition to addressing sustainability, we also want to do what we can to simplify the plan for members. Some of the ideas we presented to the EBAC committee recently include looking at our HRA and FSA fund structure. These are two types of health savings accounts that we currently offer. That involves, currently we have 2 cards for 2 different accounts with 2 different vendors. This has created confusion and frustration with employees, and we're looking to transition into a single FSA account. In doing so, we're looking at ways to make that transition in a fair way, looking at possibly allowing HRA credits to move incrementally over into the FSA. Another area that we're looking to simplify is pharmacy copays. Currently, for many pharmacy claims, there's a copay and a coinsurance, and we're looking to change that to just a single flat copay. And finally, we want to work on additional education. We feel that this is key. While our wellness staff does a fantastic job really reaching out and trying to educate our employees every day, we're looking at expanding that overall and not just focusing on open enrollment. All right, now we're going to shift to the county's property and casualty insurance program. Specifically, we're going to look at trends and projections in the property casualty premiums and also look at our funding. We recently received input from our county's insurance broker on projections for premium rate increases on various lines of insurance for the county. With regard to property, they have projected about a 10% premium increase in 2024. In all other lines, which we'll look at in a moment, they are collectively looking at an overall increase of, or projected increase of 9%. It's important to note that these projections with regard to the other lines are assuming that there is no change or increase in the sovereign immunity cap. Similar to the group health plan, the charter offices participate in many of our property casualty programs, including workers' comp. Here's a look at the current and projected premium costs. Overall, not including property, the broker, as I said, is expecting an overall 9% increase in premiums, with the important caveat, as I said, assuming that there is no increase in sovereign immunity caps. There are currently bills pending in the legislature that may indeed do that. I did indicate as well, our property insurance policy period runs a little different. It's from June. It's a June policy renewal, and that property insurance is split between 2 fiscal years. There was a significant increase in the property premium last year, and we expect, as I said, about a 10% increase again this year. We just looked at the cost of insurance premiums. This slide shows the total revenue and expenses for workers' comp, property, auto, and general liability. You can see we had deficits in all 4 programs in 2023, and the end-of-year balance is down to about $11 million. The board approved premium increases for fiscal year 2024, but we will need to do more to catch up.
Before you go on, let me address this issue, because this is an important one for the new and upcoming budget. When you look at those numbers, you can see that the revenues that came in for each of those lines of insurance, including workers' comp and property specifically, but even general liability, the expenses far exceeded the revenues that we collected. That has been occurring for several years. So when you see an 8% increase in what we anticipated in the premiums we charge, when you multiply that times the revenue we have, you can see if we had a similar experience the next year, you're going to be in the hole very quickly. 10 million looks like, well, you have plenty of money in reserve. Now, that's not money in reserve. That's supposed to pay for all the prior year claims that are still out there. So this is something that's going to require significant increases, and then we still have to find additional revenues to help support the program. So I want to make sure the board is fully aware of understanding what that chart means, and we are very well aware of it, and we will be making the appropriate recommendations to the board to move it forward so that you can continue to have a sustainable program in those different areas as well as in the group health insurance program.
Question, Chair?
Thank you.
Question?
Commissioner Goodson.
Thank you, sir. Do you have an opinion on when those pending lawsuits will settle, or is it just
Commissioner, they settle every year, and so you have a variety, especially in the workers' comp arena, claims that some get settled within 1 year, some never settle, and the medical and indemnity claims go on for extended periods of time. So the answer to your question is it varies claim by claim.
I thought you might be in a better class of insurance than I am.
No, sir.
All right. So now we're going to shift to recruiting, where we have some good news. Overall, we hired more people than we lost in 2023. You can see here for the calendar year, as I said, and this is excluding fire rescue because Chief Voltaire addressed their department specifically. We had 247 new hires. We had 22 rehires. We had a total of 198 separations, which included 37 retirements. So that shows us a net gain of 71 people to the county.
What do you classify as a rehire? Excuse me, Chair, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
What is a rehire?
Someone who has worked for the county before and has come back.
And left in good standings and just decides to come back?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
And another thing, when we get into this, you're going to see it in another slide, but that 71 gain isn't 71 additional employees. It's 71 of the 350 vacancies we have. You heard that from the sheriff and others, so I just want you to know, I mean, from a staffing level, we are still trying to make up ground.
Absolutely. And this is consistent with the countywide overall trend in vacancy and turnovers. After struggling through COVID, the average monthly vacancies have gone down, and they do range in the 300 vacancy position range. And the annual turnover rate has also gone down, as you can see here in the slide. These are all good signs. So what's driving these positive results? In part, we have shifted to an active recruiting process. Staff positions have been created in key departments in an effort to move from passive recruiting to active recruiting. This includes a position with Human Resources, our Career Development Manager. We have a specialized recruiting, or a recruiting specialist, in Fire Rescue. And the Public Works has also brought on a recruiting and community outreach specialist. So what are some of our recruiting initiatives? We are doing a lot of targeted recruiting, which includes a lot of outreach to veterans programs. We are looking at, or we do reach out to Patrick Space Force Base with their Career Transition Office, as well as the Department of Defense, their skills program. What these two programs focus on is reaching out to active military who are in the process of getting out of the military and coming into civilian life. So we're trying to give them an opportunity to come here to the county, develop skills and find a home. We also do multiple military veterans job fairs. You can see the ones that we've done and will be doing in Vieira and Palm Bay. And finally, overall, just general community job fairs and outreach. We have sponsored and or attended an additional 15 job fairs in 2023. Another initiative that we're doing is really developing our relationship with the Brevard Public Schools. We have developed a fantastic relationship with the CTE program and reached out to them and have had success bringing students in for internships. In the past year, we've placed students in public works, planning and development, solid waste, tourism, and libraries. In addition, the development of the Fire Academy with Brevard Public Schools has been very positive and successful as well, which Chief Altair described to you. The board has been sensitive to what's been going on with staffing levels, attrition, and the overall challenges in our labor force. The board has addressed CPI to maintain competitiveness in the labor market, especially with regard to the blue-collar and non-bargaining unit staff. Most recently, in fiscal year 2023, the board approved a COLA of 5.38% or $1, whichever was greater. And in our current year, in fiscal year 2024, the board approved a COLA of 5% or $1 an hour, whichever was greater. This chart shows the change in CPI, which is depicted in blue, and the county's COLA increases, which is depicted in orange, from fiscal year 2011 through our current fiscal year 2024. And the final chart shows the cumulative increase of both CPI, again in blue, and COLA increase in orange, showing that the board's action in developing the COLAs has pretty much been able to remain close to CPI. So that concludes the presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Good job, Melissa. Anybody have any questions? Commissioner Tobias.
Ms. Powers, I want to thank you very much. Welcome as a new director coming up here with all
Thank
those
you.
things. And I don't envy your role as, you know, the boss man interrupted like 4 or 5 times. It was very clear that he might have been a former human resource manager. So clearly he's, you know,
Yes.
in that vein very much. So I don't envy you in your position, but I appreciate, and I hope we can continue that graph moving forward so we match the CPI. I know that's a management decision, but it's one that I will pay attention to very closely.
Absolutely. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Melissa. Okay, I believe we got Mary Ellen up, do we not? Did you have something to say there, Frank? You're good?
I never managed Parks and Rec. I'm going to let her talk.
I saw you chomping at the bit too, so interesting.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Chair, Commissioners, County Manager. Mary Ellen Donner, Brevard County Parks and Recreation Department Director. I have with me this afternoon Steve Kimball. He's the Assistant Director. Got it. Okay, now I know how to work this thing. So this slide, our very first slide, actually depicts how many parks and how many acres our 321, but really 241 awesome employees take care of. So as you're aware, we have 3 areas in the Parks and Recreation proper. So the first area is the north area, and it encompasses all of District 1, Commissioner Pritchett's district. And as you can see, we've got 20 parks in unincorporated Brevard and 21 parks in municipalities. Central area has 46 parks, 29 in unincorporated and 17 in parks and municipalities. And this central area is encompassed by all of District 2. And the South Area Parks District actually has 3 commission districts in it. It's Districts 3, 4, and 5. And as you see, we have 27 parks in unincorporated Brevard and 12 parks in municipalities. We have had some discussion about interlocal agreements that we have with other cities. And here is a depiction of the City of Cocoa, City of Rockledge, City of Titusville, and Brevard County Schools with their expiration dates and when they actually, how many parks are in each of those jurisdictions. Another topic that we've been discussing lately is the property that the county over the years has conveyed. And this slide lets you know to whom we gave the parks, when we gave the parks. And of course, there is one little anomaly in here. In the City of Cocoa, Lee Winter Pier still belongs to the county. So in on our operations side, we have 15 community centers. You can see how they're spread throughout the north, central, and south. And of course, 3 nature centers, 1 cultural center, that would be Harry T. Moore, 3 pools, and 3 campgrounds. And of course, in all those pools and campgrounds and community centers, we've got phenomenal programs. Here you see our very popular after-school program, summer camp program, summer food service. Of course, we've got about 45 athletic partners that use our fields, and we've got 154 fields we operate and maintain. And how do we do all of that? Well, we're into the revenue sources that we have. And this is consistent. We'll go through each of the areas, but this is the overall department operating revenue sources. Of course, we have general fund, voter-approved ad valorem taxes, and previously Jill talked about the color of money. Typically, these voter-approved ad valorem taxes can only be spent within the areas that they're collected. We have balance forward, and then other operating revenue sources. And here's the breakdown per area. The north area has about $27 million. Central area has a little over $17 million. And the south area has a little over $34 million. So as we started out, that all adds up to about $79 million. The total operating budget for the department is a little over $100 million, but we're just talking about the Parks and Recreation section of the department in this presentation. And then we're going to get into capital improvements. And I think, Frank, we were going to discuss the capital improvements, or would you like me to continue? Okay. All right. So this is a depiction from 2011 to current 2024. You will see the colors. The color purple is actually hurricane repairs in the north area. The blue is ad valorem. The red is actually supplemental, and that's a supplemental general fund that has been added to our general fund and our ad valorem taxes to enhance the infrastructure. That was been a priority of Frank and the county management. And then, of course, there's an ARPA fund that you can see here, and the ARPA is going to go to Parish Park Trailhead, and as well as the fourth field at the Chain of Lakes softball field. This is the central area, and again, you can see when Mr. Abate got here, there was a lot of interest in improving the infrastructure within Parks and Recreation. And some of the park improvements that were of note in the central area include renovations to Stradley, as well as all of the beach crossovers over the last couple of years have actually been replaced in Central. And we've done about 10 playgrounds as well in Central area. And of course, this year we have on tap the lights at Mitchell Ellington.
Yeah, let me speak at this point on the capital projects. one of the areas we were looking for board direction moving forward is, what we've been doing that Mary Ellen has illustrated there, and that is to incrementally improve areas in 3 areas, right? You heard about road and bridge and what we did with the roads and the paving. That was one area that we focused on. A second that you haven't heard today, but we did the same thing, is in facilities, county facilities on a countywide basis. You heard a little bit about the judge, but what the judge had to say, but we've been doing that throughout all different county facilities. The third area is the parks. And so what you see in the capital improvement program here is incremental additions every year to further catch up on deferred maintenance that's occurred over probably a 20-plus year period. And we've done that in a variety of areas. Some areas have received additional attention more than others because, for example, when you saw the difference between North, Central, and South, say, well, why is the South so much higher in the revenue it has available compared to the Central? That's because they did additional MSTUs. They need less general fund support, so the general fund monies that were available in Parks and Rec, we allocated into the areas where it would be the most use because the South area is already made up, and they've done a lot of things that the other 2 areas weren't able to do. And that's really what this story is telling. So what we're looking for from the board is to make sure, like in other areas, that we are aligned and continuing to do these things as we move forward. Go ahead and jump 2 slides. One other thing that we've done, which is new, that's the countywide projects. Those are the projects we've completed right here. We added this year something that was very successful in Public Works and has been for a number of years, which dealt with the specialized construction crew, which would do specialized construction projects in an affordable way compared to if we bid them out, et cetera, using county staff and then catch up or do new projects. And that program is still working in Road and Bridge and Public Works. However, what we did here is we partnered Public Works with Parks and Recreation through facilities, and we have a program that we plan to, if the board approves and sees, move forward on, which is focusing on bathroom areas in different parks throughout the county, and a specialized crew that's dedicated only to those parks so that we can get the parks in better condition countywide, and in an area that's fairly important. Shower areas on the beaches, restroom areas are important in all areas. They don't necessarily always get the attention that they should, especially as not only citizens but visitors come into those facilities. So they've been working very hard, and we're having a lot of success, we believe, with that program. So that's really what that slide was about. So with that, I'll let you conclude it.
We just, to touch on the South Area Parks, the capital improvements, in District 3, we have done improvements at South Mainland, and we have redone the Spencer Holland restrooms. We have done many renovations at Long Point Campground. And upcoming this year, of course, Flutie Lights and as well as improvements at Hoover to the athletic complex. In District 4, Commissioner District Feltner, we are doing a wonderful building. It's a disabilities building that will house our countywide program in Wickham Park. This new disabilities building is slated to open almost any day. And we've put a new restroom at Canova. We're in the process of doing that at Canova Dog Park. And we've done a lot of playground replacements as well. And in Commissioner District 5, Commissioner Steele, of course, I mentioned Hoover. That happens to be in your district. And we've done a lot of improvements over the years at Rhodes Park. And this year, we're putting a new restroom at Police Foundation Park, as well as current renovations on the football field at Rhodes. This just illustrates the number of projects from 2018 to 2023, 272 county-wide capital improvement projects. This is just for your information, broken down in north, central, and south. Again, the improvements, capital improvement projects from 2017 to 2023. Mr. Abate addressed this. We actually had a couple of quick wins on this bathroom program. Cherry Down and Murski were completed, and we've got two that are almost about to be done. One is at Ponce de Leon, and the other is at Val M. Steele Park. So with that, I appreciate everyone's support for the Parks and Recreation staff and programs that we provide to this community. I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Goodson.
Your after-school programs, are they free? Are they
No,
free?
sir.
There's a fee?
In some areas, they're reduced based on income, right? But it's not income, but there is a charge.
Chair, one more?
Yes, sir.
Summer food service, is that free?
It is. It is a pass-through grant from the federal government to the state government. Any child under the age of 18, and they don't need to be in a summer program of ours, can come to one of the sites and receive free lunch.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Any other questions? Mary Ellen, thank you so very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Now we have Mrs. Indian River Lagoon, Virginia. How are you, Virginia? Been sitting quietly over there, waiting for your turn. It's
Great,
nice-
thank you
nice to
very
see
much. I'm looking forward to it. See if I can poke the right buttons here. So I get to talk to you about the Save Our Indian River Lagoon program this afternoon. And as you know, the board just unanimously approved the Citizen Oversight Committee's recommended 2024 annual update to the Save Our Indian River Lagoon project plan. This handout that's going around and is on the screen summarizes this 300-plus page plan on one piece of paper. So you can see how the funds are allocated between different types of projects to address the major sources of nutrient pollution and how many of each type of project are completed or underway. These pie charts show how the allocation of funding has changed since project inception in 2016. You can see the shift of funding from the gray muck removal projects that dominated the original plan to the yellow to orange rainbow of wastewater-related projects and blue stormwater pollution reduction projects dominating the 2024 plan. What about progress? We've completed 88 projects, of which 43 have been completed by the cities and 45 by the county. Collaboration with the cities is important for addressing hotspots and for getting projects done countywide. This table also shows almost 1,500 completed homeowner projects. These include quick connects to existing sewer lines, septic upgrades to advanced nitrogen-reducing systems, and leaky sewer lateral repairs. To reduce the risk of sewage overflows to the lagoon, the swirl staff worked with utility services staff to smoke test over 40,000 homes. We replaced 264 missing or broken cleanout caps that used to let floodwaters drain directly into the sewer system and contribute to sewage overflows. We also identified 649 leaks. We then notified the owners of those leaks in their yards that they had leaks, and we offered funds, reimbursements, to get them to make those repairs. But very few owners took responsibility to make that happen. So we came back to the board, and you approved provisions to allow enforcement. So working with TADS folk and code enforcement, we now have over 97% of the leaks repaired, and staff is focused on getting those last 3% done. Inflation. These graphs show the engineer's estimate versus the low bid with the percent difference in the purple columns. The left graph is multi-million-dollar projects. The right graph are some smaller projects. You see there's a lot of variability, but overall, we've seen about 30% inflation by 2021, 50% inflation now, and we are anticipating 75% cost increases by the end of year 10 in 2026. At the same time as we've had inflation in project costs, there's also been significant revenue growth to the program. So the increases shown in the right-hand column are a combination of inflation adjustments for projects included in the plan, plus the addition of new projects added as part of the annual plan updates. Near the bottom, the contingency row, you see that started out as 0. However, that total of $302 million was relative to, there was $340 million of anticipated revenue. So a little over 10% was held back. In 2018, a contingency fund was formalized, which amounts to 5% of the funded programs in any given year. And so that 5% has been updated annually ever since 2018. Growth in staffing, shown as FTEs on the right-hand graph, has been regulated to keep pace with the increasing workload indicated by program expenses in the left-hand graph. In year 1, we hired 2 engineers, 2 biologists, and 1 accountant to get the program growing. I want to give a shout out to the budget office staff, the county attorney's office, and especially the clerk staff for helping us establish good governance policies for this program. We now have a dedicated team of 2 engineers, 7 biologists, 2 accountants, and 1 environmental supervisor. These graphs also show workload increasing annually as more projects get underway and more projects receive matching grants. The left graph shows the quadrupling of project workload, color-coded for construction, projects in design, monitoring, grant contracts, and completed projects. The graph on the right shows the homeowner projects that were slow until we got grants that allowed us to expand eligibility and increase the financial incentives for homeowners to participate. Now contractors are helping to disperse program information. When they're called for a repair, they provide the repair costs that would be up to the owner, or say you're eligible for an upgrade or connection to sewer, for which the Save Our Lagoon program would provide a certain amount of funding. So you see, we started without dedicated staff for these homeowner programs. Then we added 1 full-time equivalent, and we are now at 2 dedicated staff for the homeowner programs. We've also seen a tremendous increase in grant funding over the last few years. This fiscal year, after budget prep, the legislature approved $20 million in appropriations for lagoon projects, and then we competed for and won another $44 million from the new $100 million of state grants specifically for Indian River Lagoon projects. Grants basically double the accounting workload. Payment for each invoice is split between the Swirl Trust Fund and the specific grant fund. Copies of these payments were compiled and submitted to the grant agencies for reimbursement. There are also extra internal and external audits for grants, which take time. As grants increased, we've added a 2nd accountant. We're planning to fill a contract manager position this year, bringing us to 3 FTEs. And depending on the timing of grant contracting and project construction, we may need another accountant position next year. This shows the $23 million of legislative appropriations that were approved last year after budget prep for swirl projects. The top 5 are the $23 million of Save Our Lagoon projects. We also see $5 million for utilities and $6 million for city projects, et cetera. In addition to funding in the legislation, there was also regulatory things. There was creation of the $100 million grant program for the lagoon. When the state created this new $100 million grants program, we wanted them to know that we were ready not just for the first year of funding, but for this to be a recurring program as proposed by the governor. We wrote project proposals for over $200 million in project requests to compete for the $100 million new grant program. This resulted in $44 million in specific project awards. In addition, the legislature created a new Indian River Lagoon protection program that requires the state to perform more water quality monitoring, enforce their basin management action plans, requires local governments to assess the feasibility of expanding sewer service to developments of over 50 lots that are less than an acre in size, and stopped state approval for conventional septic in the lagoon watershed. Starting January 1st of this year, all new septic systems must be advanced nitrogen-reducing septic systems. I've also listed some other 2023 legislation that impacts the lagoon. This is a preview of the 2024 appropriations as of yesterday, but probably changing as we speak. As you know, the governor recommended a recurring $100 million grant program for the lagoon. There is $100 million in the current House appropriations bill, whereas there's $25 million in the current Senate version. The lagoon is currently in the running for $5.3 million for 5 specific projects listed at the top of the green projects. There's also several million for utilities projects, public works, and other county programs. The cities are also in the running for significant state funding in this appropriations cycle. The top of the list there, I want to highlight COCO. Last year, they asked the board for $545,000 of contingency funds for a septic to sewer project. The board approved the funds conditioned on COCO securing state matching funds. The second row shows $3 million listed for that project. I searched for other lagoon projects outside of Brevard to see what our neighbors are doing, and you see the projects listed at the bottom of the screen. Notice only 1 or 2 grants per local government versus the dozen on the prior slide for Brevard. This illustrates that our delegation has been working very hard for Brevard citizens. Another bright spot, sales tax means that people who shop here contribute whether they live here or not. Tourists contribute about 20% of sales tax collected in Brevard. That means for every $4 collected from residents, another $1 is collected from tourists. With grants and other contributing partners, we turn that $5 collected into $8.25 to spend. So residents are getting double value, over $8 worth of projects for every $4 paid in sales tax. So that's a lot about budget. What is this working? The slide is about how lagoon water quality and harmful algal blooms respond to reducing pollution. The left map is a satellite image of the 2011 super bloom. It shows algal bloom intensity and distribution, with hot colors indicating more intense bloom levels. The rest of the maps are from a water quality model developed by the Water Management District. Working from left to right across the screen, they show how bloom levels are expected to decrease as pollution is reduced or removed. So starting, the first panel is how much pollution was in the lagoon back in 2011, and then the next panels are if you reduce the excess pollution by 25%, by 50%, by 75%, or all the way on the right-hand side to the targets that are have been mandated by the state and federal government. We need clean, clear water and a clean, sandy bottom to allow seagrasses to recover, which will allow fish abundance to rebound. Currently, we have reduced about 40% of the excess nutrient pollution. All swirl projects combined will reduce excess pollution by 70-75%. Seagrass cover continued to decline from 2011 to 2020 because conditions, though improving, were still unsuitable for seagrass. However, encouraging patches of seagrass showed up in 2022, and significant patches of seagrass grew in 2023, including 40% cover recently measured in Mosquito Lagoon. So in some ways, getting started seemed like the hardest part. But each year, as we complete the easiest projects available, the next projects are harder and cost more per pound of pollution reduction benefit. For example, average stormwater project costs increased over 30% between year 1 and year 5 of the program. We expect projects in year 10 to cost about 260% more than the easiest and most cost-effective projects completed in year 1. We have years to go, but we are making progress. We have turned the ship, and the Indian River Lagoon is showing us, with fewer, smaller, shorter blooms, more episodes of gin clear water, and expanding patches of seagrass, that it has the capacity to rebound if we keep pressing forward, reducing nutrient pollution. Thank you very much for your support to restore this national treasure for our community and our economy. I'm available for questions.
Thank you very much, Virginia. That was great. Any questions from the board? Hearing no questions, and that's good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. We've got some cards. I think we ought to just stick with 3 minutes so that everybody can hear what they have to say. Christina Fleming.
Hello, I'm Christina Fleming. I live in District 3's area, and I'm also a retired firefighter after 25 years. I'm speaking today because you guys are setting the budget. You're working on it. So I've been doing a little research, and in with that research, in 1998, we signed a referendum as a voter, and we were supposed to have the millage rate as 0.6431. It has yet never to reach that level. It's always been below. So there's some money that you guys might be able to look at and find, and I'm a taxpayer. I'm willing to pay that millage because I know what it's for. I also know that, there's other departments too that we can find money for them other places. The other thing I have is, to go with Chief, is with you guys, I have a question, is what are your expenditures for salaries? And what do you anticipate it's going to be as we move forward? And then my other question is what is your voluntary overtime budget? Because these are things in a workshop you need to know. So we need to know what it is we're going to be, what they are. With communication, when we communicate, we always communicate from the bottom up, and we play a game of telephone. And as the telephone happens, the stories change depending on how many people are in that telephone line. So remember, if you have dissent in the bottom, something changed along the way of the telephone line to you guys, our Board of County Commission. I also believe that there is many a solution to fix the retention and the recruiting problem. With recruiting, you have to dangle the piece of candy. In order to have retention, they have to see past your piece of candy to what's going to be further on down the line. If you only continue to hire new hires, you will never have the quality employee as they learn the county, as they learn the county way, as they grow within the county. So you're going to constantly have new hires that don't know the area, that are still learning their job. They're new. As you progress and you keep them here, then you will have a great quality fire department. Pretty soon you're going to have a really unqualified fire department because you're going to have fresh out of school kids. You're not going to have the people who've been here for 18 plus years that want to work for the county because we love the county. I was here for 25 years. When I got hired, I told them I was going to be BFL, Brevard for life, and I was. I was starting to get a little disappointed at the end. I retired only because it was a necessity for my family. My husband still works for the county. So I will continue to stand here and fight for my guys and my gals because they deserve it the best that they can get it. So as you guys look for your budget, please look in the budget. Look to see where you guys have money or had money and that you don't go and get it. So that's all I have to say, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Michael Branson.
Good afternoon, Chair, Board, and staff. Thank you for allowing me to speak. Michael Bramson, Brevard County Firefighters Union President. Before I begin my short statement, I wanted to start with a revelation. Before migrating from the FRC area to Vieira, some of the first responders behind me joined me for breakfast and a table talk. The reason this is important for a meeting such as today is because it is an indication of what's called culture. Culture is a critical and probably the most critical aspect for the survivability of your fire department and that is accepted nationwide, worldwide. It is an understanding that we are here for a workshop, and that implies that there will be many opportunities for adjustment, changes, and additions, and most importantly, clarification on some discrepancies and some communication errors in today's presentations. With that being said, we're expecting that the landscape of Brevard County will be very dynamic over the next 8 months, with an increase of emotions and intentions, some of which may or may not be heard today or is going to be heard. So I'd like to address some omissions on today's conversations, and those omissions probably are not intentional, but let me just address one item that I'm allowed to speak of, and that is for the supportive services for the people that put the tires on Brevard apparatus and put the shirts on Brevard first responders. We call those people the fleet and the supply. I bring this awareness to the men and women who keep the wheels turning that allows us to respond to those calls right on the back of the interlocal decision between the county and the fire department during the interlocal telecommunication agreement of last week. I bring that in address because every time there is something, we talk about the expansion of our services. The expansion of our services have multiple multipliers. And the one that always tends to be at the very bottom, which is always the most crucial in anything we do in a paramedical military organization, is those supportive services. So in closing, I'd like to just say that I thank you for your time, and I thank you for allowing us to come in and listen to what's going on in the county and being a part of that county. And I have some optimistic hope of what we can put together in the next 8 months. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Michael. Joshua Madsen? The Moose. The big man.
Call me anything. My name is Josh Matson, and District 4 is where I live. Been with the county for 23 years, a little over, nearly a quarter of a century. My wife's same. She's been on for 24 years. I hope that the new guys aren't making the same mistake I did. I hope you guys have a better direction and future ahead for these guys. I've been here for a long time. My last raise over the last 4 years was a total of 8%. Inflation was 22.37. So I lost 14% by staying. Do I keep doing the same job? Do I do 14% less? No, I still do the same job. I had hope many years ago that I'd be where I want to be, close to my retirement years. I'm not. My wife got hurt. She was out for the last 2 of her higher 5 years because she tore her ACL on the job. That takes out her 2 high years. So for people that want to be dedicated to this place and want to have a future and a career, you have to look at your senior people. The new guys come on, you dangle that carrot like she said, they get on the job, and then they look at the people that have dedicated their lives here. They see that they've not been taken care of. All right. County manager, I like to call him the micromanager. He has been a conservative county manager for good times, but now we have never kept up with anyone else. And now we can't. $15 an hour is a starting firefighter EMT for the next 8 years. They don't see $1 more, $15 an hour. And that's only because, like you said, we had horrible negotiation against a good negotiation, so the state had to come in and supplement that money. That's not even our contract. So I don't know if you guys even know what we get paid, but $15 an hour for a trained professional isn't a lot of money putting their life on the line. And we don't just do fire, so that's the whole big thing. A lot of medical calls. 85% of our calls are medical calls. Paramedics running your emergencies, running our citizens' emergencies. Charter cap can always be beat by a supermajority vote. We know that, 4 out of 5. It's time to change the culture of this county. The new guys aren't going to stick around. A lot of us guys that have been here a while, dedicated, we're going to be gone. So on a call, you'll know it. If you see us on an emergency call, you'll know who's been around a while running the call. You'll know the guys who are new. I think, around 70% of our department has less than 5 years on the job. So in a career where old guys have the knowledge, you're going to lose a lot of that. Someone else, another lady spoke earlier, $13 an hour is what she's paying some of her starting staff. That's $2,080 a month. You guys know what rent is in Brevard County? Do you know what cost of living is in Brevard County? We're not the old conservative living county that we used to be. We're South Florida now. We need to start competing with those places, or we're going to lose everybody. So I hope you can actually talk to the public safety director and our fire chief face-to-face without someone in between filtering up and down. And then you can hear from us what happens, what it takes to actually run a fire department. All right, we need a fire chief and a public director running the department, not someone who's never been in the field, all right, and doesn't have a hand on the pulse, I should say. So thank you for your time. Have a good evening.
quick.
Yes,
Mr.
Commissioner
Abate,
Pritchett.
what's the starting that we're doing with the firefighters now? Because we gave a big chunk of change to try to put it down in those lowers. So, well, that's going to be with the union to work out, but we try to get it so that their starting was about 45 or 50,000. Did that ever happen? Because we gave a lot of money towards that to happen for the firefighters. Are we only paying them 15 an hour?
When you implemented the contract 3 years ago, I think the average increase was about 10%.
Okay. Can we have a copy of all the firefighters' pay and what their yearly salaries are so we can look at it? I think that's going to be important. I want to know where that's getting distributed at, because we really tried to fix that a while ago with a big amount of money, so that would be something I really want to look at.
Okay, we have that data available, Commissioner.
Okay.
All right, Michael Benton. Afternoon, Michael.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm going to talk about my family just a little bit so you have perspective of where I'm coming from. My father moved to Brevard County in the 1940s. I moved down here to live with his aunt, who had just moved down from South Carolina. She used to deliver messages for the military serving our country, running messages literally in Charleston, South Carolina. A few years later, his mother, my grandmother, moved down to Brevard County with my grandfather when he was injured serving our country. I grew up running around the O'Galley area, not the Melbourne area, as my father would remind me. Running around the woods, had lots of good fishing spots. O'Galley River's still there, but most of my fishing spots are gone. They're zero lot line neighborhoods. To talk about my family, talk about all this, is to show you the perspective I have, the vested interest I have in Brevard County. Lots of people are newer here, but everyone in Brevard County is important. Now, I think with the massive growth in Brevard County, it's disproportionate if you look at the services. We've had such growth, and the reason I think that the services are disproportionate is because of the lack of experience. I worked at a pizza place. It's not something that's unique to fire rescue. Working in the pizza place, flipping pizzas, you saw new faces come and go all the time. My mother, Brevard County resident, she orders a pizza tonight. I'm probably not going to pray. Say, Lord, please let that person that's making that pizza have at least a year experience. But if she calls 911, she's a tough lady. It's going to be an emergency. And I want to know that the people that are coming to help her and mitigate her emergency are experienced. I want to know that they're not working on mandatory overtime on their kid's birthday. I want to know that their mind is focused on the emergency at hand. I think to mitigate this problem is through employee retention. It's great that we're hiring all these people. Even someone from the Sheriff's Department said we're hiring all these people right out of high school. Earlier, Commissioner Goodson had mentioned a scenario where someone indulges in too much alcohol. They're swimming in the ocean. Not a far-fetched solution. There's lots of people that have emergencies. Some of these people that make poor decisions could be your mother, your son, your uncle, a child. It happens. As a first responder, it's our priority. It's to treat everyone with dignity and respect. Now, I have a very profound appreciation for life. That's because of my experience. I've been a fireman in Brevard for 19 years. Experience is important. I hope you take this into consideration when you're allocating your funds.
Thank you, Michael. Sandra Sullivan.
Good afternoon, Sandra Sullivan. So in the presentations, what I notice is some of the numbers are not there that they were there last year. So I just want to bring some reality to the conversation. Last year for transportation, we had a $699 million deficit on capacity needs. And in that presentation, this area here in the dark is what's presently funded. I attend TPO meetings
and they talk about how we have a fiscal cliff coming in 2025. And I agree with that. And it isn't just transportation. You know, we have in solid waste from last year a $95 million bond in 2023 and a $77 million bond in 25. When we look at our request for appropriations from the state, a lot of it is asking for payment for funding to pay for new facilities like a new sewage plant, 2 new water plants, et cetera. It becomes very evident that we have a crisis coming. So pertaining to the document that was being discussed about options and how we could pay this, I want to say that with every problem is an opportunity. And right now, we have 2 half-cent sales tax. We have one for school board, and we have one for the lagoon. Now, I brought you an AG report that said you're not allowed to have 2 half-cent sales tax, just like I brought you the 2 AG Attorney General opinions that you can't use TDT for lifeguards. Apparently, that was correct. So we have huge amount of inflation. We have an opportunity right now. Restructure these 2 infrastructure surtaxes into a 1-cent sales tax. No increase in tax overall, but we would put that money to, in school boards, they've been renewed twice, so we sunset that. They both sunset in 2026. And we use this to fund things like stormwater, transportation primarily is a big focus because that is our critical need. I mean, it is absolutely, but also our utilities, et cetera. And at the same time, that's not going to fly unless you also increase impact fees, which you talked about today. Impact fees have not been increased for transportation in 23 years, for 32 years for the other ones. With all this inflation, how can we not? And we are restricted by the state to how much we can increase that. But if you look around the state, at least many other counties have recently increased their impact fees for growth, because with growth, especially the increased density that we're seeing, the high rises, those are very intensive on infrastructure. Look at Port St. John. You know that it was $50 million to build a sewage treatment plant back in 2018. It's $170 million now. So we have to find a way to be creative to fund this, and we have an opportunity right now with both the Save the Lagoon and the school tax sunsetting at the same time with the referendum coming in November. Thank you.
Carlos Sandy.
Good afternoon. So I just wanted to give a little bit of perspective. I am one of the new hires that was spoken earlier about. So I think it's important to hear from the lower level what the culture is and what the word is. I'm a new hire with the Brevard County Fire Rescue, so I'm just beginning my journey. I don't have 20 years plus experience on the job, but I would argue my opinion still matters. I was fortunate enough to receive a partial scholarship from the county in order to attend fire school, and for that I'm extremely grateful. I was also fortunate enough after fire school to be hired and placed at a station with a crew that I have full trust and confidence in. A crew that trains and teaches me to be a firefighter and EMS provider that the public can place their trust in. I love my job. I'm also a husband, and in about 3 weeks, I will be a father to my newborn son. I need to know that while myself and my team are placing our lives on the line every single shift, the powers that be have our backs. I need to know that every effort is put forth to make sure that we have sufficient training and equipment to keep our promises to the public. Every time I leave my house for a shift, I make a promise to my wife, and that promise is to come home. Sorry, I lost my spot there. The other promise I made to my family is to provide for our household financially to the best of my ability. It's no secret that every department in the state of Florida is hiring, many with substantially higher pay. I can tell you for a fact that several people that I was hired with, my friends, I have already interviewed with and accepted positions elsewhere and will be leaving BCFR after being with the department for less than 3 months. There has to be incentive to come and also to stay in order to properly staff and protect the communities we serve. If you weren't aware, the general consensus is that BCFR is a stepping stone department. Start here and then go somewhere else once the opportunity arises. I would venture to say that's not helpful to the budget considering the cost required to recruit, hire, and train new department members. I don't need to and will not get into inflation and the cost of living. We are all feeling the effects of that, and that problem can't be solved here. But if changes aren't made with regard to our wages and our culture, the firefighters, paramedics, and EMTs that serve this community faithfully will be put in an untenable position. A choice will have to be made, either stay and suffer or go to another department, another city, or another county. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Sir, can I ask you a question?
Yes, ma'am.
So I'm guessing you're not making 45 to 50,000 a year.
You would guess correctly.
Thank you. You're supposed to be, but so thanks.
Okay, David J. Van Meer Breeden. Did I do all right with that name?
Yes, sir.
Amazing. Amazing. Do you have a question? Commissioner Tobias? His name is David J. Van Meer Breeden. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, we call him Meer.
Good afternoon, Commissioners, County Attorney, County Manager, Chief. My name is David Joseph Van Meer Breeden. I'm 28 years old. I'm a firefighter with Brevard County Fire Rescue, and I have lived in this county for almost all of my 28 years. I've worked on boats and cars, I've cleaned windows, served in the Air Force, and I was a part of the most recent 2401 hiring class, as well as being sponsored. It was a huge blessing, and thank you guys for allowing them to give me that opportunity. Man. The nice thing about these yellow shirts is you can't tell us new hires apart from the senior firemen, the paramedics, the chiefs and lieutenants that are also here with us today. I'm not about to cry. I'm losing my voice, I promise. My highest priority is to the county and to this job, but my first priority is to my wife. I have to be able to provide for her, our future kids, and I'm not looking to get rich. I promise. I don't need a boat or some nice property and grant, but I would like to be able to buy a house in the county I grew up in, I live in, and I serve in. That's all I got.
David, that was very moving. Kristen, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Commissioners and staff. Kristen Lartey, moderator and founder of the Brevard Cares Citizens Group, where I am a proponent of citizen engagement and citizen participation in meetings like these. And I've been kind of distracted this meeting, which I want to tell you about, and it's nothing to do with the firefighters. I'm sympathetic to their comments, and I'm glad that they're here to exercise their rights to citizen engagement. I've been distracted because the room wasn't sized well enough. I came here to learn. I wanted to participate and learn, and the room didn't hold everyone, so I had to start out in the Space Coast room downstairs, watching it on the TV. Well, during that time, I put in speaker cards according to the agenda, which says that if you wish to speak to any item on the agenda, please fill out a speaker card, and which that has not been the case. What's happened is that there's one public comment at the end, whereas everyone knows at a normal commission meeting that the residents can speak to any item as you go along. Well, wouldn't that have been helpful for some of these wonderful presentations that we've heard to be able to accompany the presentation with the speakers? There was actually one speaker who had to leave. She couldn't even stay, that had put in a card, and so now we don't benefit from that. I put in cards that were denied, so I myself, I have 3 cards that were denied, including one on the vote that you all took on the lifeguards. So you guys took a binding vote during a workshop. There's no meeting backup that's available for residents to be able to see Commissioner Tobias' proposal at the moment, and the public had no right to actually speak prior to the meeting. I even was at the meeting and put in a card. And my understanding of our right to speak is that citizens are supposed to be enabled and given the right to speak prior to a vote. So I object to a binding vote being taken at a county workshop and which was not simply forwarded to an agenda item to a meeting so that people who are not here at this meeting could actually weigh in on that vote. So I find that objectionable. I don't think that it should be, I don't think that you should be participating in that and allowing that. I was downstairs trying to get the attention of the lady that was monitoring that room, and it's just very unsettling to not have the participation that's needed to have robust civic engagement in our county business. And these are marvelous presentations. I'm so glad that I'm here, even watching it on video. You know, they're great presentations, but the public has not been given the stated right to access in which some of us came prepared to want to speak to. So anyway, I wanted to say that. Disappointed we couldn't be in the same room. I'm just glancing through my notes here. People take the time to attend here in person and do want the right to engage, and it really would have made a more robust meeting to allow us to speak on items that we cared about. I wanted to say that the Citizens Academy, some of these presentations are helpful, and I've been versed to some of this at the Citizens Academy, which I'm grateful for, and I recommend to all of the citizens of Brevard County to take. And then on Tuesday, I attended the Supervisor of Elections who did the logistical and accuracy testing, and I was able to see that, and I felt very confident and comfortable in our election. And I just wanted to make a note of that, since he wasn't here himself. He perhaps is too busy doing the elections, but you all should know that that someone's doing a good job here in Brevard, including yourselves. But I did want to make that comment. So I am leaving disappointed in how it happened. I'm glad you had it. I'm glad that the workshop happened. I support these workshops, and I just request that you reconsider the public participation as you move through the workshop and prior to any binding board votes, because I object. Thank you. Oh, I don't want to leave. There was a few seconds. Any questions? Okay, just wanted to make sure.
Kristen, your objection's noted, and I'll look into it.
I appreciate that, Chairman.
Okay, we have Brent Wallenberg.
That would be a commission, and I think that would have to be a commission discussion if we change that, so we'll have to.
Well, I'm 66 years old, and I was born in West Melbourne. And my dad was a fish guide back then. And the shores of our lagoon was foam. I mean, my short-term
Brent,
memory.
is your microphone on there, sir?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Maybe I'll talk a little louder.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay. But like I say, my dad was a fish guide way 66 years ago. Sometimes I feel like a history book. But the chemical reaction going on the shore of the lagoon is, without it, like, well, I can go into a lot of things, but like I say, without it, you can throw all the money at the world at the lagoon. You're not going to fix anything. But with it, it can feed everybody. And I've been on my own campaign fixing the lagoon for 15 years now. And basically, you put the shell back on the shore. The whole lagoon is acidic, and it threatens everything. I can take the foam on the shore is now on the beaches, and you can sit and watch the acid-base reaction is what causes the foam on the beaches, and you can sit and watch the beach turn to liquid and float away. That's the cloudy water. That same shore or chemical reaction should be going on in the lagoon. Come to find out, Henry Flagler, who built the Ponce Hotel, he pulled coquina out of the lagoon and tamped it in mold. And if you go to St. Augustine, the whole city is coquina. But that was such a success, he done that all the way down to Miami, pulling it from the shore. And if that wasn't enough, they paved US 1 pulling coquina from the shore. Now, I'm about to make a documentary that's going to doggone blow things wide open, I think. But I'd rather come in here and have you all question what I have to say. And if you got questions, tell me I'm wrong, lay it on me. That's about all I got to say.
Thank you very much, sir. All right, Maris Bragg. Is there a Maris Bragg here? Ah. My name is Marcus Braga. Okay, well, see, I messed up. At 75 years old, you think I'd be able to read?
No. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Marcus Braga. I'm a new hire, fresh out of high school, 19 years old. Many of the people here know me as the son of the firefighter at Osceola, who was unfortunate enough to take an axe to the head while on shift. And early last year was even more unfortunate to go into cardiac arrest in our living room, in which me and my brother got to work him.
Okay, sir, if you would pull that microphone up a little bit closer. You're a tall guy and
Ready?
not quite projecting well enough.
Thank
So
you.
there you go.
And due to unfortunate court precedent, he was not covered by the Heart and Lung Bill, which claims to cover all firefighters. However, this has not deterred me at all to pursue a career as a firefighter. The concern I have with Brevard is not a new one. It's very well known and is often the first thing that comes to mind when you ask other firefighters about us, and that is pay. I believe BCFR's pay is not reflected in his duties in comparison to adjacent departments in Brevard County. As far as duties are concerned, we are called firefighters, but 95% of the job is to transport patients to the hospital. This leads those on rescues to have more calls in general, as well as spend more time away from the station while they drive to and from the hospital, versus those who get to go back to the station immediately after they leave the scene. This leads those on rescues to miss meals, miss opportunities to get a workout in, and miss out on sleep, all while getting paid no more than those not on the rescue, and get paid relatively the same as those who work in departments who are not required to transport. I believe Brevard's pay should reflect the amount of work we do and a pay increase for everyone capable of transport, or implement a rescue incentive for those on the rescue. I also agree with what Chief Voltaire said about the sponsorship being a phenomenal idea for BCFR, but Brevard's problem doesn't lie in with hiring, it lies with attention. For every class we hire, we lose just as many to other, as Palm Beach said, destination departments. And for every person we force through medic school, all that does is make them more marketable to other departments. With a better medic incentive and possibly rescue incentive, I think we can hold people from with a better possible rescue incentive, we think we can hold people from sponsorships with MOUs, but when the cost of the MOU can be paid off by the difference between a single year's pay between this department and a destination department, it doesn't do anything except waste time and resources on a very temporary solution. When I first started my time in the field, at the start of the fiscal year, everybody at my station except the lieutenant was in the process of applying for a different department. I love BCFR and what they did for me and my dad, but I would one day like a wife, a kids, and a house. And the way things are now, there's no way I can afford even one of those off the current salary. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, any discussion amongst the commission before we go to board reports? Hearing none. How about county manager?
I have no report.
County attorney?
No report, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Pritchett? Commissioner Goodson? None. Commissioner Tobias? No report. Commissioner Feltner?
I have no report.
Commissioner Steele? I have no report. I guess we're not doing the vice thing this evening. We'll do it at the meeting. Did anybody else have any comments? Do I hear a motion to adjourn? The motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. We are adjourned.
The opinions expressed by any member of the public during any period of public comment do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, or the program sponsor, and are solely those of the presenter. The Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, and the program sponsor hereby expressly disclaim any and all responsibility or liability for any defamatory or slanderous statements expressed by any member of the public during any such period.